Welcome to Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse, a podcast exploring cult classics, subculture, and geek media. I'm Nick.
And I'm Dave.
And welcome to our Season 1 wrap-up episode.
We're going to be going over our first 10 episodes or so, including our episode 0, where we're going to talk about everything we've rated, and we're also going to get into another rapid-fire session, sort of the spiritual successor to our episode 0.
If you listen to episode 0, you're going to be fairly familiar with that format, but if you are someone who is just now finding us from outside of our immediate friend bubble because of a promoted Facebook or Instagram post, extra welcome.
Yeah, we're going to be asking each other some silly questions related to our ballywick. We're going to be talking about geeky stuff, funny stuff, and, middle-aged dude stuff that is generally applicable to everybody, but from our perspective. But what have you been up to lately?
Oh, man. I mean, not a lot. Following the political chaos that's going on at the moment. You, dear divers, are going to have a little bit of an advantage on us as by the time you're listening to this, the election is probably over and hopefully counted, and we have some idea if we're in a fascist dystopia or a neoliberal nightmare.
Well, I mean, there was an election in the 1800s that didn't get settled until March in the Supreme Court, and the Union prevailed, and we still exist. So I have a little optimism with regard to historical precedent.
Yeah, I mean, if you call that optimism,
that's not amazing.
Woo! Go neoliberal nightmare.
Yeah, this isn't going to be a political podcast at all, but yeah, so you've just been dwelling on the news. Is that your thing?
Dwelling on the news, catching up on podcasts that came during my Coronication, and so I didn't listen to them. Like Henry Rollins' KCRW radio show. I've got like 20 episodes that I haven't listened to.
Oh, wow.
So I've been just, jamming on those and stuff like that. I mean, nothing too exciting. How about you?
Well, I've been working on getting moved, which will be soon. So this will probably be the last recording in the old pod cave. We'll actually be moving properly into the new studio next time.
Yeah.
So that'll be great.
This has actually been a pod cave in name only, as it's fully above ground. The new cave will be a proper dungeon.
Yeah, actual dungeon without a window. So that'll be great. But I'll also have it soundproofed and whatnot, so that'll be nice. But actually what I've been doing that's more interesting than getting ready to move is I've been getting tattooed.
Yes, you have. You've got a lot of work done.
Yeah, in the last several months, I did a lot of work on my sleeve on my right arm. It's not quite finished, but I have an appointment to have that finished. It's a Norse-themed kind of dragon that I had done up through the middle, kind of serpentining its way through my old tattoos and filling in the space with really cool historical style knotwork. And then just recently, in the last few days, I got both of my shins tattooed with matching greaves.
Oh, that's so gnarly. I've just been cringing for you ever since you said you were going to do that.
Yeah, I'm a tall guy, and I have long legs, and these tattoos are huge. They're bigger than anything I've done. When he was done, my artist, by the way, is Ken Nelson at Hopeless Ink. He's amazing if you're into this kind of historical styling from like Northern Europe. He also does some really cool like illustrative stuff that's not what I have, but I've seen his other posts on Instagram. Anyway, Ken was saying that doing just the line work on my two shins was almost the equivalent of outlining an entire sleeve for someone.
That's crazy. They're two big pieces, so together it's a lot.
Yeah, so I've been really enjoying that. I've obviously been a tattoo fan for a long time. You are too, obviously. You have a lot of them. And I've got appointments out into the spring with him, get more stuff done.
Yeah, I guess I need to get in there too. My artist that I've gone to for years, Jeremy Marstad, is there also at Hopeless Ink. So
yeah, he stopped by while I was getting my legs done.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what I've been up to. So anything else on that?
I don't think so. I think we can get to the podcast fuel and then take our first break.
Yeah, sounds good. So what are we drinking today?
Well, I brought in, because back in episode 0, you asked me what my favorite brewery was. And I said it was Culmination in Portland. And then over, some 10 odd plus episodes, I've failed to bring in a Culmination beer at any time.
It's tough because I know you're always trying to find a beer that's name sort of relates to what we're covering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and stuff like that's searching for a theme, and combined with the fact Culmination doesn't have like a huge like store presence, because I went down to their tap room to pick these up.
Oh wow, that's some dedication.
Oh, I know, yeah.
When did you do that?
It was such a chore for me to go and sit there on their patio and have a couple beers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a really detail-oriented person. You're normally good enough is not good enough. So It doesn't surprise me you went and got some Culmination brew.
But anyways, this is Distant Observation. It's a Kolsch style, but it's not very traditional Kolsch. It's like a hoppy Kolsch. It's part of a rotating series of hoppy 6-packs that they're doing.
Yeah, this when I read the label and I cracked the can and started drinking, I definitely did not feel like this reminded me of a Kolsch. I've been drinking, the last couple of times I've had Kolsch was at 5440, their Cascadia Kolsch, and it's a really good example of kind of a classic Kolsch.
Yeah, very much so. That's a good one.
And this is not like that. This reminded me like if a Kolsch had an affair with an IPA.
That's not far off, because it's dry. It's basically a regular German style Kolsch, and then it's dry hopped with an excessive amount of Australian Galaxy and New Zealand Wakatu hops.
So I would say if you're a beer person, if you like different styles, give this a try. You'll probably like it. But most casual beer people, or people who just aren't beer people, they don't tend to like hoppy beers. That's usually an acquired thing. So this probably wouldn't be your jam.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a little too... It's funny because they don't even have an IBU listed on it, and it definitely has some bitterness units happening.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is not a fruity beer. This is very bitter. And
I'm a huge fan of the Kolsch style, especially in the summertime. It's really my favorite beer. And even though I'm a traditionalist for the most part, I do like, hoppy Kolsches like this one, or Double Mountains Kolsch is quite a bit hoppier than a standard Kolsch, and I like that one too.
Yeah, Kolsch is my go-to in the summer, or Mexican lager. Those are kind of my favorite summer beers.
With or without lime?
I go without. I tend to. I think, and this is I don't know if this makes me sound snobby, but I feel like the lime obscures the brewer's vision.
Oh. I think that could be true if it's not intended, right? Like,
sure, if they brewed it with the idea of putting
you're putting a lime in it.
And maybe I'm doing it wrong.
I think however you enjoy it is the right way for you.
Oh man. All right, that's such a touchy-feely way to describe it. Sometimes some things are wrong, Nick.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think with that covered, let's take our first break, and we will get back with our Season 1 review.
All right.
Welcome back, divers. Let's get into this. We'll just start with episode 1. We started with David Lynch's Dune.
Yeah, I wanted to start with Dune because it's one of my favorite movies, and we really picked it apart. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Oh, really? I mean, it's one of like 2 episodes I would probably call a do-over on if I could.
Yeah.
But not because I thought we were too critical of it.
Okay, yeah, so what did we end up rating it?
So at the time, I gave it a 3.5, which was the same rating you did. But every subsequent time it's come up, I have claimed that I rated it 3.25, which I think I'm more comfortable with that rating, honestly.
I actually think we should have rated a little higher in retrospect.
So this is one I went through and just kind of checked us against Rotten Tomatoes just to kind of see how we're falling along with the critical consensus.
Yeah.
And we're like at least a full point outside the median rating on this. It's
too low, too high?
Too high. It's a 2.5 on Rotten Tomatoes.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the critic score is pretty low on this. There's some pretty scathing reviews on that website.
Yeah, I don't really put much stock in critics, but then here I am doing movie reviews, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're being overly harsh, and we watched that movie multiple times, or I did in the run up to recording that episode, and I'm very comfortable with my 3.25.
I feel like the only reason that I feel okay giving it a 3.5 and not a 4 is because David Lynch himself doesn't love it.
That is, I mean, I think that's pretty tough criticism when it's like the only movie in his repertoire he doesn't stand behind.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's not re-deep dive it. Let's move on.
Okay. So the next one I have up was our very first hot take for My Hero Academia: Heroes Rising.
And this one was bundled with another episode, right?
Yes, that one we crammed that on the beginning of the last Unicorn episode and made for kind of a bloated listen.
Yeah, we should have had that be a little bit of a standalone because honestly, Last Unicorn is classic. That deserved its own moment. But My Hero Academia hot take, we went and saw that in the theater, and just for some reference to the listener, we recorded some of this stuff way before our first release because we were intending to release right when Corona started, but that put a damper on us getting together because we were being good little lads and not meeting up and whatnot until our state said it was fine to meet in groups of less than 5. So yeah, we saw this in person at a theater.
It might have been the last movie I saw in the theater or close to it.
Yeah, it was early on. But anyway, My Hero Academia, I really like the cartoon, the anime. It's really good. And I'm not actually that huge into a lot of these modern kind of fighting-based animes.
Right.
But this one's fun because I love superhero stuff. I love to hate it. But in this case, I actually enjoyed this one. So what were our ratings?
So I gave that a 3.75 and you gave it a 3.25.
Okay.
And in this case, we are below the critical consensus.
Oh, they thought it was better?
Yeah, it's got a average rating of 4.5 on Rotten Tomatoes.
4.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
It's nearly perfect.
It's nearly perfect.
It's a totally by the numbers anime movie with no twists.
So I wonder, for that one, what I'm wondering is if it's just the nature of what critics are reviewing it.
Only anime fans are reviewing it because
essentially, yeah, like there's probably no New York Times review of My Hero Academia: Heroes Rising.
Yeah, I mean this is, if you're not familiar with the format or you haven't listened to that episode, anime movies that are part of a series, when they're using an IP from a series, they know that they have to be able to start it at any time and it has to end and go back to the status quo so it doesn't mess up the series. This did exactly that. It had a couple of fun moments in the movie that made you think maybe they were going to change continuity, but then they walked it back. So it was fun, and I really love the Deku and Kachan interplay, those two characters who are frenemies.
Yeah.
But it was not a 4.5 movie. I stand by my rating.
Yeah, I mean, I've been worried that my rating was too high when I called it a 3.75.
It's not better than Dune.
Yeah, well, it is, but
you disgust me.
But I feel like I've got a little bit of cover since Rotten Tomatoes has it certified fresh at 4.5.
All right. So after that, in the same episode, we did Last Unicorn.
Correct.
And I love that movie. When I was a kid, we only had, we had a few VHS tapes, and this was one of them. And my sister and I watched this like all the time on repeat. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I would sing all the songs as a little kid, and I would pretend to be the flaming bull running around the house chasing my sister. And it was just this movie has a lot of good feels for me.
Yeah, and I did not share that childhood nostalgia for that movie that you did exactly. Although, as we got into it pretty heavily in that episode, we're big fans of the Rankin Bass animation.
Oh yeah, I'll rate any Rankin Bass.
Yeah. So I gave that a 3, and you gave it a 3.5. And again, we're coming in below the Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, okay.
That's got a 4.5 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow. I think the reason I gave it the rating that I did and not a little higher, it has nothing to do with the Rankin and Bass version of it, and has everything to do with Peter Siegel not being an amazing author, honestly. His little... I don't know what you would call them. Like anachronisms, modernisms, like things where he takes you out of the fantasy with a reference to modern life, like with the outlaw saying like, we're having tacos, or the singing butterfly.
Yeah.
That just killed it for me. And as a kid, I didn't actually understand those parts. I didn't know, like, why is this happening? Anyway, back to the fantasy.
Yeah, I think Peter Siegel, I mean, he was probably ahead of the curve with this sort of self-aware fairy tale.
Yeah.
I think he just looks perhaps poor in comparison because The Princess Bride came out after.
Yeah.
And killed it. Like, it took that formula and executed it much more flawlessly.
Yeah, I still like this movie a lot, and sometimes you shouldn't rewatch the things that you saw as a child, but in this case, I actually was able to appreciate some of that animation, especially in the beginning of the movie.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
In the forest, and then when she's doing her travel montage before she meets Mommy Fortuna. And then I really gained a great appreciation for Angela Lansbury's performance in that movie.
Definitely.
She killed it. Like, I love that performance.
Yeah.
So good. I love when someone can nail voiceover. It's so hard because you have to do it with nuance. You can't do it with physical cues, which some actors are very physical.
Yeah.
It takes a whole different set of skills to nail VO.
Yeah. So I don't, even though I didn't love that movie, I certainly enjoyed it. And I think our ratings are probably a little more accurate than Rotten Tomatoes in this category.
Yeah, this one was... I think we were fair with it, and Rotten Tomatoes being really generous.
Yeah. So next up, I have our hot take for The Old Guard. This was our first standalone hot take.
Yeah, we recorded this out of sequence. So we had the next couple of episodes that come after The Old Guard already in the can. And then when we recorded Old Guard, we dropped it immediately because it was timely. It had just come out. And that's sort of become our formula, is we record things that are older, like the Led Zeppelin episode or whatever, things that are not timely. And then if we need to record a hot take that needs to be dropped like the day that it came out or the day after it came out, we'll just interrupt the cycle.
Yeah. And we had, at this time, we had one more in-episode hot take in the can that was going to come out after this. But, you know, it proved better to just have these things stand on their own.
Yeah, for sure. And this episode actually has the distinction of being the only 0.5 episode. It's 2.5. And the reason for that, dear listener, is because in the next couple of episodes, we refer to them as episode 3, episode 4, etc. And we didn't want to mess with that, so we just slipped it in, and we've gotten better at our craft.
Yeah. Hopefully, slightly anyway.
Yeah, just like I would say fractionally.
So anyways, I gave that a 3.75. You gave it, at first you gave it a 3.5, and then I talked you up to where I was at a 3.75. Yeah,
and it turns out I really, really enjoy that IP. We talk about the comic, how we both read the comic. And
did you get volume 2?
You know, annoyingly, I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast that I'm preparing to move. I was going to have it delivered to my new address, and for some reason they marked it as undeliverable because the house is under construction or something. Not like they can't just deliver it. So I have to order it again. So I don't have it yet.
I mean, to be fair, the USPS is under stress at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's not time sensitive. I'll get it when I get it.
Because I've been seeing it on the shelf at my local comic book store. I like comics. And I've been like...
That's the name of the store, not just a statement.
It's either way. It's still applicable. But I've been thinking about picking it up, but I haven't grabbed it yet.
Yeah, I'm going to reorder it, and I'm going to have them send it to my P.O. box. That'll be a lot better.
Well, cool. And I think, that was a pretty much a consensus from us on that one.
It was all raves.
And we're pretty close to the Rotten Tomatoes. They gave it a 4 stars. So I think we're right in line with where we're supposed to be.
All right. So what's up next?
The next was our other hot take, in-episode hot take for Be Water, the Bruce Lee documentary.
Ah, yes. I'm a huge fan of Bruce Lee, and I remember watching this and just being blown away with Bruce Lee's natural charisma and all of his interviews and just seeing him talk to people. The camera loves him.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we're both big Bruce Lee enthusiasts, and that watching that documentary inspired us because we're going to have definitely at least one, if not more, future Bruce Lee episodes as we get through his movies.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do his late period movies.
Mm-hmm. The Golden Harvest.
Yeah,
Hong Kong movies.
Do the Golden Harvest just a big episode where we talk about all of them in brief and in general. So we both love Bruce Lee. We both love this documentary, I think. Nick rated it super high, if I remember right.
Yeah, I gave it a 4. You gave it a 3.75. And then on Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at a 4.25.
Okay, interesting.
So we're all, I feel like that's all within the margin of error. Like that's pretty close to each other.
Well, and I think that it's important that listeners understand that your scale kind of stops at 4. You don't really give 5s at all.
I don't, as a rule, give 5s.
Okay. You're like a teacher that refuses to give an A.
Well, if you put it like that, it sounds
worst
terrible.
Kind of teacher.
I will, at some point, give something a 5. I suspect RoboCop is a 5-star movie.
That's just because you love it. I mean, it's not because it's so amazing.
I think RoboCop is a nearly perfect film.
Man, I don't know. You know what would actually just blast my expectations out of the water, and I really hope the new Dune is a 5 movie.
It's entirely plausible that that's a 5-star movie because I think Denis Villeneuve is an excellent director.
Yeah, I love Dune and I love that cast, so I've got high hopes. Anyway,
yeah, let's not digress too far.
Yeah, we really liked Be Water. We gave it good ratings, and that was mashed together in the same episode as Led Zeppelin? As
Led Zeppelin, which we covered 2 more films. That was a 3-film episode.
Over 3 hours.
And that was a real, I'd say it was a wake-up call, but we've recorded 2 more 3-hour episodes since then, so we might still be asleep.
Yeah, well, I feel like we kind of got into the weeds in Led Zeppelin. Same thing with the Warcraft trailer. We got Warcraft movie.
Don't spoil.
Don't spoil our recap. Yeah, I feel like Led Zeppelin. We really got into the weeds.
We covered too much stuff for sure.
Yeah, this was a bit crazy. How do we rate it?
The Led Zeppelin films.
Mm-hmm.
So we rated Dazed and Confused, which is a documentary. Like a posthumous documentary on Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, kind of like a propaganda film in their favor.
Exactly. We both gave that a 3.5. Rotten Tomatoes actually doesn't have a score for it, so I kind of searched for another review aggregate site, and Letterboxd has that sitting at a 3.25.
Oh, so very close.
Yeah, so I think everyone kind of knows that's not a hard hitting expose. No. It's a puff piece, but it's an enjoyable puff piece.
Yeah, only the punk rock writer had anything at all.
Anything negative to say? Yeah.
Everybody else was just all fans.
And then the other movie that we watched was the Led Zeppelin concert film, air quotes. The Song Remains the Same.
Yeah, that had all those crazy montages through it.
Montages and little like
Vignettes.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, vignettes. We both gave that a 3. Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 4, so we're a little more critical than the consensus.
Man, I don't know why they gave it a 4. I wouldn't watch it again.
I think it's just that for so long that was the only movie for Led Zeppelin. Like that was the only thing. And if you're a fan and you wanted to see them on stage, and you were, a Gen Xer or younger, this was your only choice.
Yeah, you had no other options, and I get that people love Led Zeppelin, so they wanted to be generous to the movie, and this was their self-produced thing, like, so it's all arty and live music and like art film stuff, and that was cool. But I gotta say, it was over long, and I got a little tired of it at the end.
Yeah, and
not the live pieces, the vignettes.
Yeah, and I remember finding it very boring as a teenager, trying to watch that movie and not really watching it.
Wanting to worship Led Zeppelin, but getting bored in the process.
Basically. And I loved like old. I mean, I've seen like the Woodstock documentary just like dozens of times. But I just thought this was a pretty boring movie. I didn't have the attention span until I was older.
It was no live shit binge and purge.
No, not at all. So after that, we got another hot take for Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Oh yeah, the Lonely Soul Surfer episode.
Yeah.
The longest title yet.
The longest title. I gave it a 3.5. You said 3.25. Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 4.
Wow, that's interesting. And I read some news stuff in after the fact saying that it's actually, even though it's just a digital release, it's profitable.
Yeah.
They turned a profit on it. It was pretty popular. And I remember my criticisms were mostly that there was a lot of overacting and a lot of things that got shoehorned in. They tried to do like too many concurrent plots. They didn't focus on making any one of them truly awesome. They just kind of had it be like back and forth between the wives, the daughters, Bill and Ted,
right,
meeting Bill and Ted. And I really just think if they had focused on Bill and Ted, what everyone came for, the main course, they would have been better off, and I would have given it 3.5 or 3 3/4 stars. I don't think I would have gone to a 4. I think that it has to be something special to get a 4 or above.
Yeah.
And this wasn't. It was good, and I would definitely recommend it if you liked the original, but it's not special.
I think even though I think in this case that we're probably maybe a little more on point than the critics are.
They're just starved because of the COVID.
Exactly.
It's messing everything up.
I think it came at a really good time when people were looking for an escape, and it was very accessible. If you were somewhere that had movie theaters, it was in theaters. But for the rest of us in like blue states, where everything is still mostly closed, we were able to watch it in the comfort of our own homes. And I think everyone kind of had I
kind of like that. Like in my new place, I'm going to have a pretty nice home theater set up.
Sweet.
And I would rather pay $20, $25 for a digital release to watch it at home than go to a theater, with my wife. It's not like we're getting tremendous value there. It's just, it's more comfortable. The sound is good. The picture is good. We have some local kind of expensive premium theaters with like nice leather seats, and you have a lot of space, and you have ottomans to put your feet up. I like going there. But I just, for me, when I'm watching a movie, it's really killed when you have people talking about things or kids being obnoxious. So the theater experience, in my opinion, is highly overrated.
I'm a big believer in the communal experience of going to the theater.
See, I hate it when the grognards are all like shouting things out in the Star Wars movies. I just want to throw things at them and say, "Shut up!"
But you had fun when we saw My Hero Academia.
That's true,
and that's the kind of experience that I enjoy.
So people weren't yelling anything, but there was all appropriate gasps at all the inside knowledge, and I do like that.
And clapping, and
like when you see your favorite side characters come in and do awesome things. Everyone's really happy about that.
So maybe I'll add the caveat. I'm a believer in the communal experience of going to the cinema when you have a good audience.
Okay, so you're willing to sometimes have a bad experience in exchange for the ones that are good.
And the ones that are good are very good, and I've only had, very few, and there's only one time I've got up to go and have words with somebody at a movie, and there was literally only 4 people in the theater.
Oh wow, that's
which is why he thought it was okay to let his kid just act like a freaking maniac.
Oh, the only time I ever had words with someone in the theater was because a guy was letting his kid act like a maniac, and he had sat 2 rows in front of me in an almost empty theater. And so I definitely expressed my displeasure.
Right.
And so, I think that the theater experience is overrated. But anyway, we're totally off track, but that's sort of what we do.
Yeah, we do tangent and and whatnot. After that was the Warcraft episode.
Okay, and this one was where Nick was freaking
excessive.
Just excessive and obsessive about details.
Yeah, so mea culpa, I have to say that was my doing, and I'll explain it a little bit.
That movie does not warrant a 3-hour episode. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Part of the length of the episode was you recapping the game.
Yeah, but that was more interesting than the movie. It's a personal story.
Yeah, well, so here's what happened. In general, Dave is sort of the captain, and he steers the ship for us. But in this one, he said, you'd be the tour guide. And he hadn't asked me to do that yet on any of these episodes, and I kind of folded under the pressure. And so the night before we recorded, I took the most train-spotting, obsessive notes over that movie. Essentially, I watched the movie, would watch just for a few seconds, pause it, write down everything I'd seen, let the movie go. I took that, it's a dead nuts 2-hour movie, and I watched it from like 6 o'clock till like 11 at night. I stretched that 2 hours out just exceedingly long and took just bonkers notes. And the episode is kind of a mess because of it.
We can sit here and criticize our own episode, but I'm the one who listens back to all of them before they publish. It's actually a pretty good episode.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff in there. It could have been a lot of fat could have been cut out of that.
Yeah, we could have trimmed like a good 45 minutes. But ultimately, I liked the movie, and I didn't rate it. I didn't think it was special, but I definitely would recommend it to anyone who's ever played a Warcraft video game or anyone who's interested in things like orcs, because they're the main protagonists.
So we were both in consensus on this. We both gave it a 3.25. We're way outside of Rotten Tomatoes, which has this sitting at a 1.5.
What? This is the highest grossing video game movie of all time. It's made almost $500 million in profit.
Yeah.
Those critics are wrong.
I think there's certain movies, and we're about to get into another one that has, I think, where the Rotten Tomatoes review is kind of excessively low. There's certain movies that critics are just gunning for.
Any video game movie is just going to get crapped on.
Completely. They just love to run video game movies into the dirt.
Well, this movie is good, and it's actually, they're looking at redoing the IP for doing more movies for Warcraft. That was actually in recent news I was reading. I think I linked it to you.
You did. You sent me that link, and I told you, I think the World of Warcraft is every bit as like versatile as like say like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think you could tell any kind of story inside the Warcraft universe.
Yeah, like
and build it out.
We talked about wanting to see the story of Sylvanas before she fell.
Yeah, and not try and I think maybe a failing of that movie is telling the Alliance and the Horde stories at the same time.
Yeah, the arrival of the orcs on Azeroth. And yeah, there are so many amazing stories. They tried to make it this big, mega, sweeping saga, but ultimately they could have just told the story of Khadgar, and it would have been really interesting.
That would have like a trilogy of movies about Khadgar.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome. I love Khadgar.
Yeah, and a trilogy of movies following Garona, probably.
Oh yeah, Garona is one of the most interesting characters. The half orc, half Draenei.
And so it's like, well, not in the movie.
Not in the movie.
She's half human.
I'm true lore, bro.
Yeah. But I think that's as part of what made that movie hard for people to follow. Is it was throwing too much lore at you.
Yeah, in the game, the World of Warcraft, there's an item, a book that's written by Garona, and it's for rogues, and I play a rogue, so
nice.
You know I love Garona. All right, so that's enough Warcraft. What did we hit next?
After that was our first head-to-head episode where we covered Ghost in a Shell, both the original 95 anime and the 2017 remake.
So before we hit Ghost in the Shell, I do want to mention episode 5, which we skipped because it has no ratings.
Which one was that?
It was our Dune trailer episode.
Oh, right. Yeah, I didn't count that.
Yeah, because there's no ratings because it was a trailer. We spent like a long time dissecting it and talking about the Dune trailer.
Right.
So I just wanted to bring that up as a recap because that's actually one of my favorite episodes just to listen to because I re-listened to all of them for editing purposes, and that one was really good because the trailer gave us so much to chew on. It was so well edited for the super fan to really nitpick like us, or for the casual just to observe and see like a super cool upcoming movie.
So have you watched any of like the side-by-side videos where they take like corresponding scenes from the David Lynch Dune and
Oh no, I haven't.
Oh, well, okay. After we're done recording, I'll link that on Facebook.
Yeah.
And we'll have to watch that because it's pretty cool. Like, I mean, it can be made pretty beat for beat, which I thought was cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I really like that episode. There are no ratings.
Well,
if I was going to give a trailer a rating, like as a trailer,
exactly.
That was a 4.5 trailer.
Yeah, man. I think that is
it a perfect trailer?
Here's why I'll make a case for why I think that's a 5-star trailer.
All right.
Because it shows you so much and gives you the illusion that you've seen a whole story, and it's barely got you out of like anything out of the first third of the movie, I bet.
Oh, well, yeah, and we learn later that they're actually making the Dune novel into 2 movies.
And I think that's a really smart choice.
This isn't the whole saga. This is kind of the Paul, the Caladan, Atreides, Arrakis.
And that's why Fade's not.
Yeah,
he might not even show up until the second movie.
Yeah, so you might be right. This is an amazing trailer because it doesn't make you feel like you're missing anything.
Yeah.
So we might have to go back to our little our spreadsheet and retroactively add in some ratings. You've talked me into it. I think this is a perfect trailer.
This is a 5-star
because
trailer.
not only did I watch the trailer like at least 4 or 5 times just on its own without reading anything, I also went through and Nerdist did a deep dive on it. I did theirs. I watched several YouTube video deep dives on it. I can't think of any other trailer I've done that for.
I've probably like Infinity War and Endgame. I definitely went.
I would have predicted an Avengers movie for you.
But a lot of the times I really don't want to deep dive on trailers because generally the problem with these movies is the trailers show you too much.
Yeah, I tend not to like to watch comic book movie trailers because I feel like they show you the coolest scene in the movie just a la carte, and I don't want that.
Oh yeah, the biggest laugh is always in the trailer, and the big action sequence from the movie is always in the trailer.
Yeah,
and
like,
that's really frustrating.
Pro tip, do not watch a Guardians of the Galaxy extended trailer because they'll show you all the freshest Star-Lord parts.
Yeah, here's all the one-liners for the whole movie.
Yeah, and they'll give you all like Rocket's best quips, and like I was like, man, I like those characters. That might be my favorite superhero team in the cinematic universe, and I just can't stand having it just out of context delivered.
Yeah.
All right, so we have now retroactively rated that. That's our first Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse perfect rating, and it's in unison. We agree.
It's not for a full.
It's for a trailer.
Yeah.
So it's got a asterisk.
Yeah.
It's not true. Okay. Now what that means is that the movie cannot live up to that.
Oh, what if it does?
But what if it does? Would you keep that kind of hope?
I know. I mean, in general, I try not to let my hopes get too high because I don't like getting my feelings hurt. But I do have high hopes for that movie.
Okay. Well, I'm going to hope. I'm
Okay.
going to keep up the hope. Now let's go back to our
Head-to-head Ghost in the Shell.
This is one that we talked about doing since before the podcast existed. When we were talking about doing head-to-head movies about remakes, I can't remember who came up with the idea of doing remake head-to-heads, but this was one of the prime examples. This one and Dracula.
Yeah. I think actually head-to-head might have been... I mean, I had the name head-to-head because I used it in our Zero episode. I used it for our rapid fire.
Yeah.
So I had that name, but the concept was not fleshed out.
Yeah, I think we just kind of workshopped it.
Yeah.
So this one came with an interesting conclusion, honestly. I rated them differently at the end than I thought I would have. And I had a lot of love for Ghost in the Shell when I was a young man getting into anime, thinking, like, this is a classic. This is the cyberpunk movie. And I've always loved the cyberpunk genre and aesthetic. And I thought before watching the the live action remake, I thought that there would be no way that they could actually do it well.
Yeah, I think this is probably, if someone's looking at these, this is probably your most controversial opinion.
You think so?
Yeah, because we'll just stop burying the lead. I gave the original Ghost in the Shell, I gave it a 4, and you gave it just a 2.75,
Okay.
which that's not even a recommendation.
I think I'm probably more in line with the critics than you are.
No.
No?
That is a 5-star movie on Rotten Tomatoes.
No way. Have they watched it?
Oh my God. It's a classic. It is.
There's so much garbage fan service that's just all about it's totally a sexist movie.
Is it? I mean, we litigated this out pretty thoroughly, and I
Yeah.
don't think your criticisms about like the quote fan service, I don't think that's incorrect.
Well, especially when you know that the guy who created it is a porn anime writer now.
Or just art.
This is
like erotic art.
Yeah,
It's not anime.
he's an erotica guy, and so it was not a mistake. This was all about objectification on that level. On a meta level, it was about spiritualism, but on a visceral level, this is about a body, and I wasn't into that.
Yeah, but I think that is connected, the objectification of that body and why the female body is used in making the synthetic bodies. I think that is all part of the story that they're telling. Like the objectification is intentional.
Okay, and I just didn't like it.
Yeah, well, and you don't have to, but I do think 275 is too low.
I can't believe they gave it a 5. That's such garbage.
A lot of that comes down to just the quality of the animation.
It is really good.
Yeah, it's a superb, it's one of those sort of like pinnacle of that era animes.
I like it better than the digital animation.
Oh, for sure. That's why I'm saying. Can you come up to a 3?
I'm not going to revise it.
You're not? Okay.
I think that I stand with that, and I spent a couple of hours
Justifying
justifying it.
Okay. So we'll just know that you are well outside of the critical consensus.
Okay.
And then we continue to be a bit outside the consensus. For the live action remake, we're both more positive than the critics are. I gave it a 3.5. You gave it a 3. It's sitting at a 2 on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm going to go ahead and chalk that up to the fact that they were really quick to call out that this was a whitewashed movie. And so people intentionally tanked it. Kind of like the people who are watching The Boys on Amazon right now and giving it 1 star because they're mad that they put it out 1 week at a time rather than dropping the whole season.
Oh man, I hate trolls.
They're just torpedoing it, not on its merits, but because they object to one little thing. They're torpedoing Ghost in the Shell live action when truly Scarlett Johansson does an excellent job with her acting. It's an amazing thing, and it's completely understandable from the Japanese perspective why the actress was chosen, and we talk about that in depth in the episode. I don't think this was a case of whitewashing. I think this was a case of people wanting to be woker than thou.
I do think it was whitewashing, definitely. But I also understand the business reasons for why they made that choice, whether I agree with them or not. And I'm able to still objectively watch the movie on its own merits without taking the social, piece into too much account. And I think in this case, because I think that number 2 rating is way too low.
They torpedoed it.
And I think maybe that plays into the fact that the original is considered such a classic. So if the original is a 5, how dare you even touch a perfect film?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of that going on. But ultimately, this movie stands alone, and it has several things that are significantly better than the animation. The wrap-up to the story that they did with the Puppet Master, how they circled back around and made him and the Major from what would be Antifa.
Yeah, they're from an anarchist autonomous zone.
Yeah, they circled back around and made the story a little more in depth, and they made it a little more of a human story rather than a meta story about spiritualism. That sells better in the West. People are more interested in human stories rather than philosophical takes. And so I think that they did a better job making this movie an interesting, fun cyberpunk flick that you want to watch and you would watch again.
I liked it a lot more than I expected to, and I just didn't think they quite stuck the landing like I wanted them to. But all in all, I mean, I did enjoy that movie, and I think the Rotten Tomatoes score is too low. But then the next one, this is another one where I keep saying it's another one. It's another one where you're outside the critical consensus. Okay. I'm kind of right there.
All right. Well, I would put we're going to talk about Lords of Chaos.
Yes.
And I would actually say that mine is perspective based because I am a part of the metal community. I'm a musician in this genre. And so my perspective is different than a movie reviewer that has literally no clue about the veracity of any of the things that are said. They're just taking it as an entertainment flick rather than a biopic.
Right. And so I rated this 3.75. You rated it a 2. The average rating on Rotten Tomatoes is 3.5.
Okay, so you liked it a little more, and I definitely bombed it because I think that the story beats, while they did do a decent job at making it relatively entertaining, it had so much out of the realm of reality that it wasn't really something that you could swallow. Also, I think that when you do a voiceover narration in order to tell a story rather than showing us the story in the visual medium, I think that's weak.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a trope, or it's a stylistic choice that has been used in a lot of movies.
Especially a narration after the guy is dead from the guy.
That's a twist.
Don't mourn for me. I'm amazing. Blah blah blah. Like, it was bad.
So you're sticking with your 2.
I'd give it lower if I was revising.
Okay.
The only reason I gave it a 2 and not a 1 is because I think that the actor that played Varg was so excellent.
Well, what does 2 mean to you? So when I think about this,
Do not recommend.
okay, I think three is the base. Anything 3 and above, you're saying you can watch this movie. Like, 3 is not a strong recommendation. It's like a qualified recommendation.
Basically, a 2 or anything in the 2s, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4 is a don't bother.
Okay.
And I've only rated 2 movies that way, and that's the Ghost in the Shell anime and Lords of Chaos. Don't bother. There are better things to watch. Watch the live action Ghost in the Shell, unless you're a weeb and you love the anime. If you're just a casual movie watcher, you're going to like Ghost in the Shell live action better. And if you are interested in black metal, interested in the Norwegian scene, watch Until the Light Takes Us. It's a documentary. It's way better. It's more worth your time. And there are other movies that have come out, or not movies, documentaries that have come out discussing various scene things that are usually available on YouTube or Amazon. I definitely think that 2 is fair. Don't bother. It's not worth your time.
Okay. And obviously, I disagree. I gave this a pretty strong rating. And
It's
I guess
definitely better than Dune, in Nick's opinion.
I think it's a better film than Dune, yes.
Oof, that's gross. That's gross. David Lynch classic. Kyle MacLachlan, so good. Sting.
We love Kyle Mack. Sting is not a good actor.
Gurney Halleck with a pug.
Firing a machine gun. Beautiful.
It's amazing. I mean, and the mullet flowing in the desert wind.
Do not mistake my conservative rating of Dune for lack of enthusiasm for the subject material. I very much enjoy it. I just think it's sort of incomplete movie. I mean, to relitigate that whole thing where we ran out of money and we need to do an exposition dump. Paul takes acid in the desert and has a vision of everything.
It's true. I did hate the acid trip.
And it was done because they're out of time, out of budget, and they needed to get a lot of stuff loaded in to get to the finale. And so I totally understand it. And that's not, it was not David Lynch's first choice to film it that way. It was just a product of
just the reality of the situation,
the conditions. But that does affect my rating of the movie.
Sure. Just like Lords of Chaos being a biopic that was completely off and mostly untrue should affect your rating.
But it's not radically out of sync with the book that it's inspired by.
It's not radically out of sync with that book, but everyone knows that book is a sensationalist rag that has massive inaccuracies.
Right.
And they were carried forward into the movie, and the movie maker did consult with Mayhem, and he didn't consult with Burzum, Varg.
Yeah.
And because he doesn't respect him, and that's
he's a
fine.
Nazi.
He's not worthy of respect. But basically, he didn't do anything to correct the scandalous sensationalism. He actually amplified it.
Right, because it's almost like a slasher movie. It's like a music biopic meets a slasher movie.
I think that could have been such a cool, dark story. It could have been a horror movie. Instead, it was like a lame slasher flick that wasn't scary.
Divers, you will have to ultimately decide who you agree with more.
But don't watch that movie. Just listen to our episode. It's not worth your time.
Watch the movie.
Episode's free. The movie's not.
That's accurate. But
don't pay for it.
You definitely should watch that movie. And then we've got our final one. We finally managed to squeeze in an album deep dive.
Yeah, we've been wanting to do musical deep dives for a while, since the genesis of the podcast. And we had done Dazed and the Same, our Led Zeppelin episode, but that was it.
Yeah, and that wasn't about music exactly as much as it was about the story of the band.
And Lords of Chaos was kind of about music, but it was mostly about the scene.
Yeah. So we decided we had to get one into season 1, and we chose Metallica's self-titled album, much better known as the Black Album.
The Black Album. We talked about doing a Metallica episode where we would cover the kind of the chapter 1 albums, 1 through 4. But we ended up deciding to go with the Black Album because it is the quintessential Metallica album commercially. It sold over 30 million copies. It's the number 1 selling album of the SoundScan era. And it's pretty much one of the most, it is the granddaddy of heavy metal albums with regards to commercial success.
Definitely. And because of that, there's just the most ancillary material available for it.
Oh, yeah. There's documentary about the making of it. There's a retrospective documentary about it. There was a lot that we could talk about.
So we were both very familiar with the album, and it had an emotional resonance with us, and there was a lot of stuff for us to deep dive into. So that's how we ended up choosing this one, even if there is hipper Metallica albums to talk about.
Yeah, if you want to go talk about Master of Puppets or whatever, that's great. But there's so much less material to actually examine because they weren't saving things from that era. They hadn't really broke as big. So there isn't much in the way of video or even audio from the time. So we went with this one, and ultimately I rated it my highest rating of all, aside from that Dune trailer.
Yeah, you gave it a 4.5. I gave it a 4. On Discogs, the album it's kind of, because Discogs is like a record collecting website.
Yeah, it's full of some really obsessive music nerds.
So there is nuanced reviews between the different issues of it, like versus, CD or this many gram vinyl versus this many gram vinyl and yada, yada, yada. But in general, it's sitting around a 4.5 on Discogs.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
we're well in line with what the consensus on this is.
So why'd you lowball it?
I mean, really, it just comes down to those last 3 tracks. I feel like the album drops off. Like I said in the episode, if you had it on LP and it's a double LP, record 1, you're playing both sides. Record 2, you probably play side 1 and you never play side 2.
That's true. I think you could have made one single LP, front and back,
5-star album,
perfect songs, no fat to trim,
and
then use the other songs as single B-sides.
That would be my preference. And that, I mean, I even found a lot to be enthusiastic about in those weaker songs, due to repeated listens. But it's just that first raw listen through, I don't dig these last 3 tracks.
Man, after doing the deep dive of the Black Album and listening to it a bunch, and then watching the documentary, and then watching the classic albums on Amazon, and then a year and a half in the life of on YouTube, and then some other interview stuff. I had Metallica songs from that album stuck in my head for a solid week and a half.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I just was like, I'd be walking down the hall, and I'd be like, my friend of misery. I must have been driving Carrie nuts.
Oh, yeah. Lisa actually asked me to stop watching Metallica videos.
And Holier Than Thou. I'm not sure why that song stuck with me so much, but that song's pretty great.
Yeah. It slaps for sure.
It's a bop.
It is, yeah. That is a bop for me too. Well, that's it. That's our wrap up of our first season of episodes.
Yeah, we got a little more. We got a little more than 10 that we wanted because of that 0 and that 2.5. But I feel like we've kind of got to the point where we're a little bit more self-aware, and we're a little less rambly, but not so much, because we do we do tangent and rate things posthumously, I guess.
Yeah. So well, I mean, there might be one more hot take that sneaks in here.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's up in the air.
We're recording this after all of those are recorded, and it's possible we might pop another one in before this comes out.
Yeah.
So give us a little slack if that happens.
Yeah. But anyways, that's a wrap on season 1.
All right, let's go ahead and take a small break, and then we'll go ahead and do some rapid fire.
Welcome back, divers. It's time for us to get into our rapid fire redo.
Yeah, so in episode 0, we did a little getting to know you section where we asked each other a bunch of nerdy deep dive questions. Things like, do you like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones better? Or what's better, Star Trek or Star Wars? All of those kind of things. Well, we've already asked them. So these are going to be a little more obscure, a little more cheeky, and I definitely have some in here that are just meant to be fun and amusing. They may not even be very geeky. So I'll just go ahead and start off. I'll just light you up with one.
Okay. I'm ready.
Why is John Wick and the urban fantasy universe he lives in so much more compelling than Batman?
Ooh, that is a very hard question for me to answer.
Because there's an internal assumption.
Well, no, because I haven't seen any of the John Wick movies.
No, they're so good. Holy crap. If you like action and you like that sort of Batman-ish dark hero guy, and there's definitely fantasy elements like fake stuff.
There's like a League of Assassins.
There's like this super League of Assassins that have this dark cabal organization.
Yeah.
And
it's
amazing.
I'm very interested in those movies.
Best action movies in recent history.
And the people, anyone that was involved in those movies has gone on and done other things that I liked. But I mean, really, the thing that's been holding me back is just the first one hasn't been on any of the myriad streaming services that I'm subscribed to.
Seriously? Like you can't? You'd have to buy it.
I'd have to buy it. Yeah, and so it's like I always see.
Let me just tell you.
John Wick 3 is available to stream on this service, and I go, ooh, I want to watch 1 and 2, but 1 and 2 I have to pay for.
Let me just tell you that John Wick 1, standalone, even without the sequels. That movie knocked my socks off. And I think the John Wick movies are Keanu's best movies.
I believe it.
And he did The Matrix.
I'll watch those movies and maybe we'll deep dive.
Yeah, maybe we'll do
either the series or just the first one or whatever.
I think we could do the trilogy.
Isn't there a 4th one coming though?
I think so.
Yeah. But I'm going to still take a shot at your question.
Okay.
And you say, why is John Wick more compelling than Batman?
Yeah.
I think there's a few things going on there.
They're both rich guys with no superheroes that just beat a lot of ass. Or no superpowers that beat a lot of ass.
I think the internal logic of John Wick is probably more consistent than it is with Batman. There's a lot of like fallacies or like just weird things about Batman. Like Batman's stated mission of like making the world a safer place, he could use his resources a lot better than he does.
Oh yeah.
John Wick is like a hitman with a code, right?
Sure, yeah.
So his stated goal is entirely different than what Batman is trying to do.
Like kill bad guys.
Yeah. And so it's a different thing. So I think that John Wick just rings more true because you don't get these weird paradox like, why doesn't the Batman just freaking kill the Joker, or like any of those things? Why doesn't he spend his money donating it to like things that actually better the city as opposed to tools that he's better uses to cripple poor people? So that's why I think probably John Wick is more compelling, or at least it doesn't cause as many uncomfortable questions in your head.
Well, and I will say, throw it out there that there is no fight scene in any Batman movie that can stand up to John Wick's fight scenes.
Oh man, even that one from BVS that I always share when I'm talking about how good Batfleck is.
I think that Keanu spent over a year in combat training in order to do his own stunts and his own combat scenes. He learned how to do the gun fu, all the tactical shooting, and he kills it.
Now, I'd kind of like to see Batfleck and John Wick fight each other.
Oh, man, who wins? John Wick wins.
Probably because he uses guns.
He's willing to kill people? Yeah. It's like, oh, I got a headshot. Boom. Yeah. It's over. And Batman's like, I'll restrain this guy.
I'm going to cripple this guy. and he just gets shot in the head. Yeah. Okay. That's a good question. I think we made it work even though I haven't seen those movies.
All right. So what's your first question?
What's your starting Pokemon?
Oh, man. Bulbasaur.
Oh, you went with like the cabbage toad.
Oh, dude, Bulba, he's the best. I like Bulbasaur.
Interesting.
I mean, I almost went with Squirtle.
Mm-hmm. I'm Squirtle Squad,
because
100%.
Squirtle, I really like Squirtle, and I love his attitude in the Indigo League cartoon season 1, basically. Yeah, he's got so much sass. Like I like Squirtle, but Bulba is my cantankerous little bro.
Yeah, I do love Bulbasaur too, but I'm 100% Squirtle Squad.
Yeah,
interesting. I didn't know. I guess now I knew that, but I forgot that.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I played Pokemon.
I know you cut Pokemon out of your life.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I'm still slogging away at it. I mean, I hit level 40 like forever ago.
Yeah, but I think I'm at 35 or 36 when I uninstalled.
Well, it's never too late to come back.
It's not. That's true. Okay, so I don't even remember if we've covered this before, but I threw it on here. What is your favorite childhood cartoon? Not to be confused with the copious amounts of adulthood cartoons you watch.
My favorite cartoon from childhood.
From the era. So that'd be 90s mostly.
80s.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 80s mostly. Yeah, 90s is not really.
This is I think it is going to... it probably has to be Masters of the Universe.
Okay.
And Ninja Turtles is strongly in the running based only on the first 5 episodes, like the initial miniseries.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Like, I saw that when it was fresh, too, when I was a kid.
But I was aging out a little bit. Like, I continued, obviously, until now when I'm in my 40s, and I still haven't aged out of, like you said, watching cartoons and buying toys. But I was aging out of playing with toys as Ninja Turtles were really, like, peaking.
And they really kept it going just to sell more toys.
Yes, totally. And so I don't think but then, then the other factor is, because I'm going to say I don't think the Ninja Turtle animated series held up as well. Mm-hmm. But it's actually probably better because if you go back and watch Masters of the Universe, it's not good. It's very poorly written and animated.
Well, it was also purely done to sell toys.
But I was more sophisticated by the time Ninja Turtles came around.
Okay.
Whereas I had a completely blank slate when I got Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
And so I could just roll with it.
All I saw was Skeletor, and I was like, I'm in.
Yeah. Like, there's all sorts of, like, how can the villains be so scary and so incompetent at the same time?
Yeah, for sure.
By the time you're like 10, 11, like, you're like, this doesn't work.
I'm really surprised that no mention of Thundercats or G.I. Joe.
I don't care about military stuff.
Okay, well, I was a big G.I. Joe fan.
And you joined the army.
I did join the army.
I was, even at like 5 years old, I was like, not for me. I'm fine with what I am. I don't need to be all I can be.
Well, I mean, but Thundercats is amazing.
And
I even brought back Mum Ra in D&D.
You did. And I just watched the 2012, I think that's what year it's from, the reboot of Thundercats, the more anime version of it, because that dropped on Hulu. and I binged the whole thing like in a weekend.
Was it pretty good?
It's so good, but they only got one season, and it's not resolved at the end of the first season. They've got like
you can't leave a cliffhanger at the end of your season if you're not already renewed.
Cartoon Network is a harsh mistress.
They canceled Metalocalypse, one of my favorite cartoons of all time.
And Venture Brothers just got canceled.
Yeah, but that was what, like 14 seasons or something? Like
it's really weird. It's like 17 years and 9 seasons.
Oh, okay.
There's huge gaps between the seasons.
I don't know why everyone loves Venture Brothers. I've watched it and I've tried to like it, but it's so absurd sometimes.
Venture Brothers, I mean, if you want a picture of the inside of my brain, it's like the Venture Brothers. Like I think the same way. Where is it? Jackson Public, and who's the other creator of Venture Brothers?
I have no idea. But
Sorry for getting your name, dude. But we're on the same wavelength. Anyways,
round it back.
Thundercats. Thundercats was very well animated, and I definitely endorse the reboot. But be aware, their Infinity Stone analogs are not all acquired by either side at the end of season 1.
Rough. Okay, so what did you landed on?
Masters of the Universe.
Master Universe. Okay, so what's your next question?
Which 2000s era music trend do you like better? New wave of American heavy metal.
Okay.
These are bands like Chimera, Lamb of God,
Shadows Fall,
Unearth. A lot of bands from New England.
I've seen all of the bands you just mentioned.
Or Orange County metalcore.
Oh, like Atreyu,
Bleeding Through, Throwdown, 18 Visions,
seen all of those bands
Avenged Sevenfold. All those bands, and they were popping off at the same time. There was a lot of mixed shows between both scenes.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really very oddly specific niche metal knowledge there. Or niche, I should say.
Yeah. We were going to a lot of those shows.
Oh yeah.
And
see, like Norma Jean and All That Remains and stuff like that.
And so I just thought, which of the two scenes did you like more?
At the time, I really enjoyed the energy of those Orange County hardcore shows. Like I never saw Bleeding Through and didn't enjoy it.
Oh
like,
yeah, they killed.
Or like they played with Himsa that one time.
Yeah, Himsa is from Seattle, but they were definitely part of that scene.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I really enjoyed those shows. They really had a lot of energy and a lot of fun. But I've listened to all those albums in retrospect, within the last year or so, just sort of like, oh yeah, I remember buying these. And the best ones are the new wave of American heavy metal. Specifically those early Lamb of God and Shadows Fall albums. They really still hold up. Super good. I will say though that of all of those bands kind of in that era, in that moment, the one that still kills it is probably Killswitch Engage.
Even after Howard Jones left?
Dude, Jesse Leach slays, and he's their original singer. And did you listen to that song they did where they did the duet, The Signal Fire?
I did hear that. Yeah.
So good. Like, I loved it. And so I think Howard Jones, he's amazing, but Jesse Leach, he really pulls it down. Like, he is not worse than Howard at singing those songs. He's just different.
Yeah. I remember being much more into it when Howard Jones joined.
Sure, yeah.
I think you're probably right, because I think most of the Orange County bands had one great album in them, and then,
like The Curse from Atreyu.
Yeah,
it's their best, and it's really the only album I like.
I think all of them have kind of like a warm up album, a great, like almost perfect album, and then a lot of trying to hit that again.
Yeah, for sure. But And I think that it's like I'm not carrying the banner for any of these bands or genres. I don't have any of their shirts. I used to have a Killswitch Engage hoodie.
Yeah. I remember that.
But I don't have any of their stuff, and I just have their MP3s. But the ones that will still get a listen, if I'm gonna put it on, it's gonna be that classic Howard Jones Killswitch Engage album, early Shadows Fall, early Lamb of God.
Lamb of God is good.
That's pretty much it.
Do you listen to those Burn the Priest?
Yeah.
Those like cover albums? Oh, that's so
really good.
So good.
Oh yeah, Lamb of God is a legit metal band. They're not just a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
Speaking of legit and in like retro-ish style, you really gotta. Oh man, now I'm blanking on the name. Like I'm thinking like this name of the song, Executioner's Axe or Swing of the Axe.
Swing of the Axe.
And it's just one of those bands. I'll come up with it. It'll come back to my mind in just a minute. All right, so I think it's my turn to ask you a question.
It is.
So this is just silly.
Okay.
Would you rather fight a 400-pound duck or 400 1-pound ducks? Death match.
Oh, 400 1-pound ducks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So little guys, but they're coming at you.
Definitely 400 1-pound ducks.
Okay.
So here's why. I like my shot at taking out big numbers of 1-pounders. Like
just with broad sweeping moves.
Yeah. I'm just like, they've got long wobbly necks and spindly legs. And I think you can cripple a lot of ducks really fast.
Okay.
But a 400-pound ducks, they hiss, which is scary. And they've got like
pretty strong bill.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, and there's almost like a little, like if a duck or a goose like bites you, there's like a little pointy thing on their bill.
Yeah, they've got this kind of like little, it's almost like a vestigial egg tooth.
Yeah, and you don't want to get bit by that. And they've got sharp claws on their little paddly feet. So
that 400-pounder would do some work.
Yeah, I don't think I could, without the proper equipment, I don't think I could handle a 400-pound duck. But I think I could hurt a lot of little ducks pretty fast.
You think you would win though?
Maybe by sheer numbers, I'm overwhelmed by the ducks. But I don't know. I just think I have a better shot.
Okay. It came to my mind. It's the band is Power Trip.
Oh,
and,
R.I.P. Didn't the vocalist die?
He did. He passed on, and I had listened to Power Trip before, and I had really enjoyed their stuff, but sort of in almost like a retro style. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, these guys are bringing it home for the old school. Yeah. Riley Gale was the singer's name, and he was a really good thrash singer, and the band is amazing. And so that one song, Swing of the Axe, anyway, they're bringing it home for that old school metal sound.
So do you consider them new wave of American heavy metal?
I mean, they're after the fact, but yes.
Interesting. Okay.
They really fit with it.
I do like them. I've listened to them a bit. So yeah, that's a good pull.
I just totally brain farted on that when I was thinking of a new wave of American metal bands. All right, so your turn to ask a question.
I also had a fighting kind of question lined up, but it's a little different. Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat.
I mean, do you even need to ask?
No, I don't. But the listener doesn't know.
I am a Street Fighter fan, OG, like since Street Fighter 2, and I've even played Street Fighter 1 in an arcade machine. It's not as good as Street Fighter 2.
No.
But I love Street Fighter. I'm a Ken player. I like Ken and Ryu and Akuma. I like those quarter circle moves and the Dragon Punch style. I also got pretty decent with Bison, Vega, Dalsim.
Yeah.
Chun-Li was always kind of a spoiler if someone was too good. You could bust out a fast character like Chun-Li or Vega, but then in the later games it kind of got a little shark jumpy.
Yeah.
But I still stick with Street Fighter. I liked Mortal Kombat sort of casually. I never loved it. I didn't like how it was filmed and animated like real people because it didn't look as cool as the cartoony Japanese style of the Street Fighter games.
And I'm 100% there. I mean, I never liked the controls of the Mortal Kombat games. I actually got competent at that system because of the DC Comics version of it that they have. which now I'm blanking on what that's called. But anyone
I got proficient with Raiden. That was the only character, and Sub-Zero. Those two characters I got all right with.
Yeah.
We used to be big fighting game fans.
Oh, yeah.
People we don't talk about much because we were teenagers working at a mall and go to the arcade or whatever. But that Street Fighter versus X-Men game.
Oh yeah.
We wore that out.
And I would say that's the only like arcade fighting game, and we both got so excessively good at it.
Yeah.
We could actually like shark people at the arcades, like like those Asian kids. Like in those days, it was like an Asian boy with wide-legged pants, brassy bleached hair that was spiky with a strip of
with
long
one
hair.
long strip.
Yeah, and they would rule the arcades, and we could totally like shark those guys.
Yeah, we could just come in on break from work, like wearing our shirt and tie, and just plunk in a quarter and just school them. And then at the end of our break, just walk away still having won every game.
And so that's the only time I've been that good at a game.
Yeah, I've never been that good at any other game, but and we got good with like all different characters. It wasn't just one thing.
Because it was that was a two character game.
It's a tag game.
I liked Akuma and Sabretooth was my.
Oh yeah, I was Cyclops and Akuma, or Cyclops and Ken, or Wolverine and Ken, or Cyclops or Akuma. That was kind of my go-to. Like the Wolverine was just devastating in that game.
Berserker Barrage.
Oh yeah, it just never stops, man. So that was
Injustice is the name of the DC Comics fighting game.
Okay.
And I'm competent in Injustice, but it's built on that Mortal Kombat engine, and so it feels clunky to me.
Okay, so here's my next question.
Okay.
And this spawned, actually, I wrote this question last night after we had gone out to the local pub and some conversations recently. What is your favorite TV show of all time? Not animated, because Nick revealed to me that he had never watched The Sopranos, which is considered one of the greatest of all time in general. And so I just had to know, if you've never seen The Sopranos, what is your favorite show?
What's my favorite, or what do I think is the best? Because
I mean, if they're different, you could just say both.
I don't know what my favorite is, especially if I can't pick something that's animated.
Yeah, no animation. I think we already asked about cartoons.
But I think The Wire is superb. Like The Wire is I mean, I don't know what that's probably a 5-star.
It's a 5-star TV show.
That's a 5-star TV show. I can say that. Even the
last season, which wasn't as
the
good.
one about the newsroom, I would kind of dock maybe a quarter point off of, and it's a 4.75. But I think
the first several seasons are amazing.
And I like the stuff on the docks with the Polish dock worker union, the stevedores.
Oh yeah,
like I'm there for The Wire front to back. That was the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, okay, that's a very respectable pull. I mean, I really like The Wire too. So good pick. All right, what's your next question?
My next question, well, let's stay with something that's fresh on our minds from yesterday. Werewolves versus vampires.
Okay, it's funny because I ask a question later it's not the same, but it's in the same vein. Werewolves versus vampires, that's tough because historically I've always been a big fan of vampires. I played every edition of every vampire, of all of the White Wolf vampire games, and I really like vampire movies and vampire shows, but for some reason lately I've just been loving werewolf. It's it's just been speaking to me. But I have to say, sort of on the meta of my whole life, I have to go with vampires. I'm more of a vampire guy. I was a spooky kid when I was a teenager. I still wear all black, but I'm kind of an outdoors guy too. Like I love camping and all that kind of stuff. It's very werewolfy. I love the whole monstrous mojo, but I'm gonna go with vampires.
I knew you would. This was a little bit like last time when I asked you about Norwegian black metal versus Swedish death metal.
Yeah.
It was like, I know which one wins out, but I know it's you like the other one enough for there to be some conflict.
Yeah, I like both, so
it's
a real thing.
I'm all in on werewolves.
Yeah, I knew that.
I'm
too.
only a dabbler in vampires.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good one, and I'll get to my related question later because this one is actually just one of those. If you had to refrain from one of these things for the rest of your life, which would it be?
This is gonna be hard. I already know.
Beer,
Okay.
sushi, or pizza?
Sushi.
Okay, I figured you'd choose sushi. I should have just had it be beer or pizza.
I should pick beer. Like
You really should.
Like, although there's a lot of carbs in sushi.
There are, but it's rice.
I know, but it's white rice. It's the worst kind of rice.
That's true.
Sorry, I kicked my microphone. Hopefully that didn't make a big noise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would really be bummed out. I mean, and then what is poke sushi? Like, there's some.
We're gonna call that sushi.
I don't like. And what's ceviche then? Is ceviche sushi?
Yeah, ceviche is sushi.
I don't think it is.
It's not.
Yeah.
Nobody would call that sushi.
Yeah. So it's a.
I mean, I think if I was answering this question, I might choose beer. The only one that's safe is pizza.
I know.
That's 100% safe.
It's become such a joke because I always answer pizza when my wife asks, "What do you want to have for dinner?"
Me too.
I always say pizza, and she's like, "We just ate pizza," and it's like, "Yeah, I had pizza yesterday, and I had it for lunch today. My leftover
have it again
pizza
tomorrow."
But I could have a different kind of pizza tonight.
Yeah. It's like saying Mexican food. There's a lot of things you can have in Mexican food.
Yeah, it's the United States of Mexico. There is many states with regional cuisines in all of them.
Yeah, like Colorado Mexican food is amazing.
Oh yeah, those hatch chilies.
Yeah, and like mole, they do it really well there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So that's a good answer. I think sushi is what I would have predicted for you, but I know you really like sushi.
I would reluctantly in favor. I mean, I'd have to roll that, or because really you should choose beer because what does beer do for you?
Nothing.
It's just. I mean, I can owe like 50 pounds to beer. But I'm also an alcoholic, so I'm going to stick with beer.
You're not an alcoholic.
Okay, so my question.
Yeah.
What is your number one guilty pleasure, or if you prefer, problematic fave?
Problematic fave, and are we talking music or anything?
I mean, usually you're thinking music, but it could be if you have a more interesting answer for, I don't know, literature or cinema or something, you could do that. But usually it's music.
What is my problematic fave or guilty pleasure? I would say a lot of shade is thrown on reality television, but I like it. In particular, one of my favorite shows is Alone, Wilderness Survival Show. I love that show. It's so good. I follow so many of the competitors because it's a competition reality show. So it's even worse than other reality shows with regard to getting shade. I follow a lot of those competitors on their socials, and some of them have gone on, like Zach Fowler, one of the winners. He now has a really successful YouTube channel where he does like 30-day survival challenges, 1 week survival challenges in certain bizarre scenarios and stuff. And he does these really cool videos, and like he's currently doing one that there's a week between episodes where they built themselves like a pontoon dock, and he's living out on this thing in a lake for a week, and he just has to like fish for food and stuff like that. It's just fun.
Yeah.
So I really like reality TV, specific things. Like Les Stroud in his Survivor Man series, which is all self-filmed outdoors TV.
Yeah, and you watched that tattoo competition show.
I watched Ink Master. It's also
Where do you stream that? Because I was trying to watch that the other day.
You can stream some of it in various platforms.
It's so inconvenient.
And what's kind of bullshit with regard to that is the last season 13, ended right when COVID was coming out, and so they couldn't finish it. There was no winner crowned. They gave them all a payout, and then they canceled the show. So it's done.
Brutal. And no more like the spin-off shows where it's like, and now just the girls.
Yeah, the Ink Master Angels or what. I never watched those, but I actually do like those ladies, like Nikki Simpson and Ryan and whatnot. Yeah. Anyway, so that's probably my guilty pleasure that
reality TV.
most people don't like.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I thought there's some music stuff that I don't think people would expect you to like, like Ben Folds 5 and stuff that you've always been into.
Yeah, I haven't listened to Ben Folds in a while, but I stand behind the fact that dude's a really good musician.
Oh, I agree.
Songwriter. I like him. I like his band. I like pop music. People would probably not think that. Like Ben Folds is a pop musician, and the Police is pop rock, and I listen to Adele, and she's soul, but it's poppy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like pop music if it's excellent.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't like bad stuff. Like, just because it's popular doesn't mean it's good. Sometimes good is popular. Yeah. Like Adele. I think
that's accurate. Yeah.
I like really good music. So if it's good, I like it. I don't think that I have genre barriers if something's sufficiently good.
That all makes sense. I think if my main guilty pleasure.
So I actually have a guilty pleasure question.
Oh, do you? Oh,
so why don't I just ask that as my next question?
Go ahead.
Out of sequence. What is your musical guilty pleasure? Like, what would you not want to put on at a party because people would think you're lame?
Oh, that's slightly different.
It's a little different, but it's related.
Because the thing that I was going to say, my guilty pleasure, really is like misogynistic and homophobic rap music, because it's like
you should feel guilty.
Yeah,
about that.
because like those, like the first 4 Ice Cube albums, I just think are so good. But like sometimes like you're listening to that and you're like, oh man, like
this is
very anti-Semitic. What are we? Yeah, and it's like
it's just sometimes there's some straight up racist and sexist stuff.
Yeah, and homophobic all the time, and so all this stuff, like, especially when you it's some song that is a bop, as you say, and you are inclined to sing along with it, and then you're like, oh man,
you mumble a lyric.
Yeah, you're like, I just can't even say that line about what happened there. And so that's my guilty pleasure. But I will always put those songs on at a party because they slap, and
people think you're cool,
and people love it, and everyone is into it, and those they really work well at a party.
That's true.
So when you add that caveat, like, what is a thing, I'll veer it more towards the problematic fave side. There's certain artists, it's always been this sort of point of contention to be down on the 90s Misfits. They put out 2 albums that I think are really excellent albums, American Psycho and Famous Monsters. But it's always been embarrassing to be in them, or into that. And Michael Graves has made things worse with his terrible politics.
Yeah, he has really bad politics. But what's weird is, like, or maybe it's not weird, but I've talked to a lot of, Misfits and fans. Anyone who's not like Sir Fronts-a-Lot, like the people who have to only be into the most true of the true, everyone says those 2 albums are good.
Yeah, I've noticed people have stopped fronting or they had been relaxing their stance on those albums
until Michael Graves came out as a Trumper,
as a Proud Boy, even. Like,
oh, is he? I don't follow him on any socials.
Well, you kind of. I think you sent me an Instagram post that he had made that I hadn't seen, because we were planning on going to see I remember the American Monsters tour, where he was going to play both albums in their full form, back to back, and we were super stoked to go see him at the Paris Theater, because we haven't been to a show there in forever.
Old school venue.
And then he posted some, just racist, or at least borderline racist stuff on Instagram, and you're like, we can't go. And I really wanted to like justify it to myself, but you were right. Like, you just can't support it, and
that conversation.
The crowd is going to just be filled with terrible people.
Yeah, it's just basically my thought was like, man, I really love those songs, and I have some great memories of seeing the Michael Graves fronted Misfits, like at La Luna and whatnot. That was really fun. but I can't give this guy my money because
Nope.
he's a racist prick, and I won't do it. So even though I wanted to see him perform those songs because he's a great vocalist, I just wasn't going to do it. And he makes his money off of those tours. He makes his living, and I don't want to be a part of supporting his agenda, his platform. So yeah, that is a problematic favorite.
Yeah, and a huge part of his fan base has always been in Latin America because that version of the Misfits toured down there a lot.
Yeah, they really did.
And I just don't know how that shit plays south of the border. I can't imagine there's a ton of people that are like, yeah, imperialist, fascist, we love you.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly, because there's a lot of people from like Latin American countries and whatnot that are
fascist.
Associated with Proud Boys and stuff in America.
Oh, that's true.
That's their claim to we're not racists. But let's not be political.
Yeah. We've devoted too much time to that already.
We ourselves are anti-racist, anti-fascist. But that's not what this podcast is about. So that was my question to you, I guess, was what's your musical guilty pleasure problematic favorite?
Okay.
So now it's up to you.
It's back on me. Who's the GOAT between Hugh Jackman as Wolverine,
all right,
or RDJ as Iron Man? They both played in, I think, approximately 10 movies each.
They are the characters.
They are. So who is the GOAT between those two guys?
Man, that's a tough one because I'm more of a fan of Wolverine than Iron Man. But I don't think you could get someone else to play Iron Man. I just don't think you could do it. It's done.
Yeah.
It's not possible. Whereas I do think there might be some people out there that could play Logan, maybe. But I really just wish they would be done with that and give us an X-23 movie. And they don't need to do more Wolverine stuff. But they're both the right person for those characters. But Robert Downey Jr. is a different kind of actor than Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
He just oozes charisma, and he's just a total like flamboyantly, I don't know, he's just an excellent showman.
Yeah, movie star.
Yeah, he's a movie star, and Hugh Jackman's a lot more understated. He's a lot more chill. The character's a lot more chill. So that's a tough one. I'd give it to Robert Downey Jr. just by a hair.
I was prepared to make the case for the other one, for whichever one you picked.
Oh, okay.
And I'll just say Hugh Jackman carried the X-Men movies because the majority of them are not good.
That's true.
There's like a small handful of good movies in that series, but even the bad ones like X3, X-Men United is watchable because Hugh Jackman is so compelling.
So is that a reason to choose him over every Iron Man movie is good?
Well, I mean, I just think Hugh Jackman was doing a lot heavier lifting than Robert Downey Jr. was.
He's pulling a heavier weight.
Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, I asked the question because I think it's nearly impossible.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's just like you've got to choose. It's like exiling sushi from your life.
Yeah.
For no reason at
Both
all.
of these guys, they're co-goat.
That's true. I mean, but how would you put those against Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier?
Well, that is an issue because Patrick Stewart has appeared in almost as many of those X-Men movies as Hugh Jackman. Yeah, like I think maybe one less.
And he's perfect for that character.
He is perfect for that character, but it's not his definitive character. Picard
That's
is.
true. That's true. Picard is that character.
And
character.
I mean, there's that question. I think we're losing our numbering a little bit.
Yeah, we are. Let's just forge ahead.
Okay.
So I voted Robert Downey Jr.
You
on
did.
that one. Okay, so this one is just fun because we both like to travel. What foreign country would you most like to live in? What foreign country would you never live in? Two-parter.
Would I never live in? Okay. Oof.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer to one, but I don't know about the other one.
I don't know what foreign country I would most want to live in.
Isn't it hard not to just say Japan?
It is, but it's not, because I really don't love the politics in Japan.
Okay.
And I also I don't love experiencing racism on a regular basis.
Well, yeah.
And I would, as a gaijin in Japan, experience it frequently. And if I'm given the option to not, not.
Sure.
But so I'm probably going somewhere in Western Europe, like the Netherlands or Germany or Belgium, or somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay.
I don't want to deal with the half a year in darkness of Scandinavia.
Yeah,
I'd like
that's a bit rough.
Yeah, so I'm probably hanging out in the EU, in that Germanic section.
All right. So where would you never want to live?
Oh man. I mean, are the like totalitarian oppressive regimes in the Middle East, is that too easy to say?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to live in Iran.
Yeah, I figure it's easy to say you don't want to live there, or maybe like North Korea.
Yeah, it would be. I would actually rather live in Iran than North Korea.
Yeah, I mean there are expats that do live in Iran. There are no expats living in North Korea.
Yeah, that'd be really lame. Like that would not be a cool place to live. That people that live there don't
unless
like
you're
living
Dennis
there.
Rodman.
He doesn't live there.
No, but he can visit.
Yeah, he's made some interesting choices.
All right. So,
is that too easy? I mean, because
I know I'll take it, because I was thinking, like, if you add up all the things that I don't like I don't like super hot weather.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't like I don't like regressive politics, and I don't like dictatorships and strongmen. Saudi Arabia has all of those things.
but there's for like the upper class in Saudi Arabia, there's a really high like high value of living there.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be upper class. I'm not rich like oil money rich.
Oh, I know, but this is a fantasy question.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm living
who's
like
the worst for every person?
If I'm living like a sultan, it's not that bad.
Sure, but every country, the ruler lives pretty good. Like Kim Jong-un lives like a king. And so does his inner circle.
No, I think you're more at risk of getting like politically assassinated in North Korea. They seem less stable.
Like you would not laugh at one of his jokes, and then some dude would put an ice pick in your eye. You're like, what?
Yeah. So I just
treason.
I just think being an upper class person in any of like the UAE in those places.
Oh yeah.
But then again, this whole thing with like you're basically living indoors in climate controlled situations because it's too hot to go outside for much of the year. There's a lot of reasons to not live there.
I'm Facebook friends with someone I met through like a role-playing group a long time ago, and we just stayed Facebook friends, who is now living in Dubai, and it actually looks pretty cool.
Yeah. I think you can make the best of that.
Yeah.
There's not a cool music scene in those countries.
Ooh,
They
no.
like people that make cool music get like beheaded.
Yeah, you have to be all online all the time.
Yeah. So I guess what do we decide?
North Korea is the worst?
North Korea is the no-go, and Germany / Netherlands / Belgium.
Okay, I could live in any of those places. Yeah. Wouldn't be my number one pick. I'd probably go Norway.
Yeah, you want to do that darkness? You get the sads.
That's true. I loved Norway when I went there, though, but I went in the spring.
It's like a ferry ride from Germany.
That's true. Maybe I'd go to Friesland, the land of my ancestors.
I definitely. I mean, do you like dairy cows?
Well, yeah, they're okay.
You like dairy cows? Ice skating?
I like all the things that come from dairy cows, like milk chocolate and cheese.
So in Friesland,
and
it's
ice cream.
about that green cheese.
Oh, that's not really my jam.
You don't like the moldy cheese?
No, I'm not into that.
Then you're not Frisk.
Okay, we'll go with Switzerland. All right, so what's your question?
Okay. Let's see. Which one are you going to chew on the best? Shadowrun versus the branded Cyberpunk, which was a role-playing game. It's a soon-to-be-released, highly anticipated video game set in that setting.
And they're making a tabletop game of it till 2077.
A new edition. Which setting do you prefer?
That's a tough one because I played a lot more Shadowrun than Cyberpunk. One of the things I love about Shadowrun is I do enjoy the mystical aspect. I like magic, but ultimately, what puts me off about Shadowrun is that it's way too magical.
Yeah.
Like dragons and the spirit realm and elemental summoning and all this stuff. It just gets too down the rabbit hole of magic.
Yeah.
That it actually just detracts for me. So I probably would lean toward Cyberpunk. I'm gonna buy that when it comes out.
For PC or for PS5?
Probably PS5, I think, because Carrie and I will both play it out in the living room. And I'm gonna buy the tabletop game though, also, and I'm gonna probably play that. And I guess what it's really telling is a new edition of Shadowrun came. It was announced a while back, and then it actually came out. When it was announced, when 4th edition or 20th anniversary or whatever, or maybe no, it was 5th edition was current. They announced 6th edition. I immediately went to Powell's and brought all of my 5th edition books and sold them because I was gonna just buy into 6th edition.
Right.
And then when 6th edition came out, I started immediately watching all the reviews, and I actually checked out their little teaser playtester thing, and I didn't love it.
Oh,
So I never bought it.
And so you just don't have...
I have
There's no Shadowrun on the bookshelf?
On the bookshelf. And I used to have literally everything. So that's a bit telling.
Street Samurai catalog?
It's gone.
Oh.
That was actually very coveted. Worth some cash.
So, really? I've got one.
Yeah, you could take it in and get some money because it's a rare one, and it's one of the good ones. But I know you won't do that, so never mind.
I like it there on the shelf.
So I go with Cyberpunk, even though I have more hours logged with Shadowrun. So here's mine, and I ask this one of my students sometimes when we're talking, like just getting to know you stuff.
And what number is this? Are we?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think, I don't know. So, because I just use bullet points on my notes, not numbers. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I think it's time manipulation.
Time manipulation. Okay, that's a good go-to.
It's really versatile.
Oh yeah, I mean, hard to argue with going back in time.
Yeah, or just pausing time, or speeding it up when it's dragging. Like,
so does time manipulation include making yourself ageless, or would you just be consistently aging as you experience time? Your body degrades.
I think that's what it would be, is that you age as you experience time. So if you did a big time jump, you were effectively paused throughout that time, but you know, to the people who are experiencing time normally.
When you come back, you're older. If you go back to the flow, because you've experienced more time.
No, when you would come back, you would experience less time. They experience more time than you.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You're like in a temporal bubble.
Interesting. Like, I always go with the easy one that I would choose Wolverine's regeneration factor.
Yeah.
Because he basically gets to live forever. He's ageless. His cells will repair himself.
It slows down, right? That's the whole premise of Logan, right? It's that it's not working as well.
That's true. And he eventually stops working. But, in an ideal world, I would say I have perfect regeneration.
Well, and part of that is, get super geeky about it. It's the adamantium poisoning. So is that he's got heavy metal lacing his bones, and that's constantly poisoning him. And
he's constantly regenerating.
Yeah. And so as the healing factor is declining in old age, it's not able to keep up with the poisoning. He would conceivably live much longer
had he had no adamantium. Yeah. So that's where I'd go. I don't need the adamantium.
You don't need that?
I'm good.
You're like, I'll skip it.
Yeah. Okay. So that was my question.
Oh, okay. What is your favorite Vin Diesel movie or character?
Okay, I'm a big fan of his action movies, and it's hard not to immediately go to Last Witch Hunter because that character is awesome. I really also like the whole Pitch Black movies. Those are really fun. I like the I like the Fast and Furious movies. There's a lot of them. I've seen them.
Yeah, it's all about family.
Yeah, but Dominic Toretto himself is not super compelling.
The movies go on without him. Like he can skip out on 2 movies.
Yeah, and then come back
going.
and it's good. But then you got to look at his newer work. Like, can you really not choose, like, say Bloodshot is not amazing?
I definitely could not choose Bloodshot.
I'm gonna go with Last Witch Hunter.
Witch Hunter.
I love that movie. It's a D&D player's movie.
I'd go Riddick. Yeah,
Riddick is amazing, but
if he did motion capture for Groot would be in the running. But since he just does the voice and it's one line, I think his contribution to those films is overestimated. But Riddick, I like that character quite a bit. I even played that Riddick, those games.
Yeah, those games they looked cool. I didn't really play them though.
Oh man, there's like a remastered, although I mean it's out of date now, but remastered version of both games, like consecutive with each other.
Okay,
it's definitely worth a playthrough.
So this ties in with that. My next question is, what is your favorite video game of all time?
Single game or series?
Single game.
It's definitely Red Dead. I mean,
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yes, Red Dead Redemption 2. Nothing even comes close.
Wow, Fallout 4, Skyrim.
We started talking just briefly about Red Dead yesterday, and I got emotional about it, and it's sincere. I really feel that way.
So if I get that for PlayStation 5, can we play it together on Red Dead Online? Can we just like ride around as desperados and be banditos together?
I think so. I never play online, but
we could.
But you can play online, yeah. I was watching a YouTube video the other night of a guy just bushwhacking people, like lassoing them, hog tying them, and feeding them to alligators and stuff. And I said,
players or
yeah, and I said that's why I don't play online games. Because you're doing whatever you're doing, and then this guy comes just because it's funny for YouTube and ruins your day.
All right. Well, I mean, I've already bought it for PC. I don't fancy buying it a second time. But when Red Dead 3 comes out, we'll make it a point of doing that.
I think what's coming next is a remaster of Red Dead 1.
Oh, okay. I can get that.
And I'm definitely going to play that. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 is actually a prequel.
It's a prequel?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm definitely playing that.
I'll make a point of getting that for PS instead of
cool.
PC. Because I'm transitioning over. I'm not buying any new games on PC.
That's a big move for you.
Yeah, because I've been like PC Mafia for like, what, 25 years?
Something like that.
It's insane. But yeah, I'm just done with it. So let's see. I think is your question, actually.
Okay. This is something you posted a meme about some of these questions the other day on Facebook, and I thought they were interesting. What's your Westeros house?
Oh, what's my Westeros house? And I think this one's easy for me to have like a go-to answer. I almost always, when I'm responding to this, I choose the mainstream ones because the ones that everyone knows because they've watched the show or whatever. And I always choose Lannister. But really, if I'm getting nuanced, like if I'm looking at like smaller houses, things that not a lot of people know about. I don't know. I feel like in my heart I'm a Stormlander. Yeah. And they don't get a lot of play on the show.
That's true.
In the books,
Baratheon dominates.
Yeah, it's all like the Stormlands are House Baratheon. Like, but I really feel like I would be a Stormlander. Like House Tarth is a mighty Stormland house.
Kinda. That's a pretty minor house.
Well, they fall in later periods, but in earlier pre-unification and Aegon's age, they're pretty important. Yeah, they hold an important spot in the Narrow Sea. And of course, I love House Connington. Yeah, and so I might just say if I'm picking a house, I'm going to go with Connington.
Connington.
I love John Connington.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love John Connington? Okay. If you don't, you're the worst. What's yours?
It's Manderley.
Oh yeah, okay. 'Cause
Yeah,
you're a fancy Northman.
I'm a fancy Northman. I'm 100% a Northman. I just can't even really fathom anywhere else in Westeros.
Okay.
But I'm not trying to live out in the woods. So yeah, it's got to be White Harbor for me.
See,
and
I would never be a Northman. I'm just like, I don't want to live in the frozen, hellish north. That's just too much.
Yeah, we'll go back to your earlier. That's why you don't want to live in Norway either.
That's true. That's why I don't want to live in Alaska, but I love Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I'd visit the north, and I wouldn't want to live there. I'd be a Stormlander.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a little ship ride from Shipbreaker Bay up to White Harbor.
No big deal. Shipbreaker Bay.
It's just about getting in and out of that Shipbreaker Bay. That's the hard part.
So I have 2 more questions.
Okay. I think we went over 10, but
did we?
Yeah, but I'm cool with it.
I
had more than 10
this anyway.
Okay.
So this is sort of like a pie in the sky. If you were making your own dream team, who would be on it? If you could choose the writer and artist for any comic book title, who would it be and what would the comic be?
Ooh.
This is pretty deep nerd.
That is a deep nerd. And I don't have it particularly well thought out.
Well, yeah, these are sprung on you.
Yeah. But something... someone that knows more than me is going to tell me that this thing already exists.
Okay.
And I know that it sort of already exists, but not on the level of some other characters. Grant Morrison is one of my favorite comic book writers.
Okay.
And he has kind of put real definitive takes on all the core DC Comics characters. But I know one of his very favorite subjects is the Flash. And he did a short run on the Flash, but never like an in-depth, like 1 or 2 year real like exploration of the character.
Okay.
And I think because I've found every time he's done that with a DC Comics character, I found it very interesting. So I really want a long run on the Flash from Grant Morrison.
Grant Morrison on the Flash, who would draw it?
It would be
just a quick take. No,
because there's a few. You know what? Russell Dauterman.
What's he done?
The Mighty Thor. He did the Jane Foster run of Thor.
Okay, that's really good art.
Yeah, gorgeous. So, and he's one of my favorite artists, and he's kind of done that thing that I understand financially, but I hate, where artists become a cover artist.
Oh yeah,
because a cover pays more than an interior page, and if you can be a cover artist, you can make way more money.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah. So I would love to see Russell Dauterman doing interiors with Matt Hollingsworth coloring, like who colored the Thor comics.
Okay.
And Grant Morrison writing just like a trippy, time and dimension spanning mythological take on the Flash.
That's interesting. The Flash has never been a character that I got into, so I can't really say much about him. I gave a little thought to this, and I didn't go super hardcore about it. And I'm not as big of a comic fan as you are, but my thought was I would really like Garth Ennis to write it. I would like Greg Capello to draw it.
Oh, yeah.
And I would like the title to be an origin and complete story for Sabretooth.
Oh, wow.
That's where I'd go.
That would be gnarly. That would be
because Garth Ennis gets dark. Greg Capello is just amazing.
Yeah.
It would be a good comic.
That would be such a gnarly comic book. Yeah, no, like I would definitely read that for sure.
Well, I'm glad you approve because you're more of a comic dude than me. All right, so what's up next?
This is the second part of that, the same meme with the Westeros house.
Okay.
What's your Middle Earth race?
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, I remember posting this on this meme on Facebook. My Middle Earth race, I think I said I was a.
You said human.
I said I was a human. I said I was from Rohan.
Oh, yeah,
I'm a rider of Rohan. That's where I go.
Okay.
I considered if you want to try to get all mythological or whatever and be like I'm a Maiar or whatever. Like, nah, I'm not all that highfalutin. I'm a rider of Rohan, and that's good enough for me.
And I wondered, because human seems like a boring answer, but the Riders of Rohan is a more specific and interesting.
Sure, it vibes with my tattoos.
Yeah, I like those guys. They are horse Vikings.
They're horse Vikings. They're cool.
They're cool guys.
So what about you?
I said dwarf. Yeah, like that, and I really went around and around on that, and like I would love to say orc. But in the
so bad.
In the parameters of that world, it definitely is not true.
You'd want to be a Warcraft orc, not a Tolkien orc.
Yeah, a Warcraft orc and a Tolkien dwarf.
That's true. That's true. Actually, Warcraft dwarves are pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And there was something about because I started. I take things too seriously, and so I started reading about the different races on Middle Earth, and there was something about the dwarves where they talk about how you have a dwarven name that you never tell anyone.
Yeah.
That just really resonated with me. Like this idea, because dwarves are out in the world in large part. Like when you think of like fantasy adventuring groups, dwarves do leave their caves and they go out and they seek adventure. It's not quite like hobbits / halflings that are more just want to stay in the Shire.
Yeah.
But there's something like, even though they're out and about, they're also secretive, and it just resonated with me.
Yeah, that does kind of that vibes with your secretive ways. Nick doesn't like to give up too much data on himself. All right, so I have my last question.
Okay.
And this kind of references back to one of your previous questions.
Okay.
Who is your favorite vampire? Dracula, Louis, Lestat, Morbius, David or Marco from Lost Boys. We got a lot of range. Any vampire, any fiction.
Vampire. Oh, if any fiction,
any vampire.
And if I'm being sincere about this, you know who it is it's going to be from What We Do in Shadows.
Okay.
It is Matt Berry as Laszlo. That's my favorite vampire.
Okay. I really like that show, that movie, and then that show. It's really good.
I just love it. I had to look that up, but it's only because I was just thinking of when he went incognito as Jackie Daytona, and for some reason, Jackie Daytona was the only name that I could like pull out, and I was like, "What's his real name?" It's not Jackie Daytona, but I was just picturing him in the cowboy hat working in a Midwestern bar.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But if you're being more classic, it's hard to go wrong with that Nosferatu.
Yeah, like it's hard to go wrong with like Max Schreck's Nosferatu.
But it's like a 30-minute long silent movie.
Yeah, or like you go, like with Dracula. It's hard to go wrong with that, you know. But I was thinking about this quite a bit, and I like lots of these vampires, and my heart always goes out to Claudia from Interview with the Vampire. She's a petulant child vampire that never should have been. She died in the sun, and I love that character, and I think the acting was amazing. I don't normally like child roles in movies. The acting always seems
That's Kristen
forced.
Dunst, right?
Yeah, Kristen Dunst. It always feels forced, but with her, it felt really right.
She's one of those, like kind of like Millie Bobby Brown, like she or why am I spacing on the Professional?
Oh yeah, and
Queen Amidala,
Leon the Professional. Yeah, I can't remember the actress.
Why
either,
can't I think of her name? She's a huge movie star.
Yeah, I don't know.
But there's certain child actors who are just like there's like a maturity that they take to the stuff that they do that it elevates it above that.
And then I think my other one that I would go with is, even though I really don't actually like the series or even the IP, I thought the acting was awesome, and I love the origin story and all of that. So I'm going to go with
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman. I'm going to go with Natalie Portman. No, I'm going to go with Eric Northman.
Eric Northman from what? What?
Suki Stackhouse, and
from that show, the HBO show, True Blood.
True Blood, the terrible show with like Vampire Bill.
I've never watched it.
Oh man, you should. There's a lot of skippable stuff. A lot of
that's a great recommendation.
Anything with fairies, skip it. Anyway, but the lycanthrope stuff, the werewolf stuff, you would like.
Okay.
Joe Manganiello plays a werewolf in that show, and he's awesome. Like, I love Joe Manganiello.
Yeah, it has a great cast. Skarsgård is great.
Yeah, he's awesome in that.
Yeah.
And so I really like that character, and they do a backward arc with him, and the vampire that created him who was like a true ancient and went to meet the sun out of kind of like a malaise depression, and the acting is really sincere, and it's really good in that particular scene. So yeah, that show's
worth digging into.
I give it better than Lords of Chaos.
Yeah, but it's already established that your review of Lords of Chaos is wrong.
It's a recommend. It's a 3.25 star show.
Okay.
It's not rock bottom recommend, but it's not a hard recommend.
Yeah, 3.25 is it's got some noticeable flaws, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. And who's the lawyer lady from the Netflix show, like with the Flash, the red-haired lady? Anyway, she's in there. She's a vampire. She's really good. Okay, so I'm really bungling this because I didn't do any prep on that.
Yeah.
Show's all right.
Okay.
Give it a go.
True Blood. Show's all right. You can quote us on that.
That'll be the caption someday for their DVD covers. Show's all right.
Awesome.
Do you have any more questions?
I mean, I do.
Let's just go with one more.
One more.
And then we'll call it a wrap on the rapid fire.
Okay. What's your Myers-Briggs?
Oh, ENTJ.
You are ENTJ.
It means I'm like the field
commander.
marshal, the commander. Yeah. I've always been a leader type who takes charge of things and whatnot. And there's a lot of criticisms of the Myers-Briggs, like it was made up by people with no proper training or education. But honestly, if you read them and you read the stuff and all of that, it resonates pretty hard.
Oh, definitely.
It definitely is not just grasping at straws.
Yeah, and there's some you've got a lot of interesting fictional characters in yours, like Captain Picard and Tywin Lannister. Like,
I love Tywin. He's the hero of Game of Thrones. He's the king we all needed.
I would say Tywin Lannister is a competent executive. That's my go-to for someone I politically disagree with, but was competent at doing the job.
Yeah, like George Bush Sr.
Yeah, Pappy Bush was a competent executive.
He did a fine job. He didn't embarrass us.
Basically, yeah. So I'm ENFP, the campaigner.
I can see that.
Yeah, it's I've got some more embarrassing fictional characters, like Star-Lord, and Piper Kerman on Orange Is the New Black is an ENFP.
All right.
And I knew that.
That show's not bad either.
No, I like that show, but at some point I had that realization watching it. I was like, oh, I'm the Piper. That's in this world. That's the me character, and
oh man,
she kind of sucks a lot of the time. So it's kind of embarrassing.
Oh man, that Pennsyltucky character is the one that just cracks me up on that show.
Yeah, Orange Is the New Black. It's not bad.
Not bad. These are our glowing recommendations.
Yeah. My favorite, though, because I get both Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka are ENFPs.
Oh, okay.
And so those
is she going to be in something coming up, like
Mandalorian season 2 coming soon?
Man,
yeah.
are they going to drop it all at once, or are they going to
I think it's trickle it out episode by episode.
We really should do an episode on Mandalorian season 1 and 2 when 2 is out and done. Okay. We do a whole episode and we just talk about all of it.
There's some cool or not cool, but interesting controversy going on with that show.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there's a bunch of supplemental material you can watch on Disney Plus.
Oh, it's good. I've watched that stuff.
I'll watch it again. All right, cool.
Yeah,
So
I think we squeezed all the juice out of that lemon.
So let's go ahead and put a wrap on Rapid Fire.
Welcome back, divers. It is time for our final segment, the one where I ask Dave, what are you into right now?
Well, I'm into some old RPGs.
Oh, yeah?
Because I've been cleaning off my gaming shelves and putting all my books in boxes, and that's got me looking at old books.
Yeah, you're feeling that wistful feeling.
I'm feeling that retro vibe. And I wanted to talk about a few of them, but I decided that would probably be counterproductive for Dave to wax poetic about old RPGs. I could do it for hours.
Yeah, let's just do an hour on GURPS. Go.
Oh, I could. You want to know about my first experience with GURPS? And, no. In this case, Werewolf the Apocalypse.
Nice.
Because I love it. It was one of the games that I used to play with my friends from high school. Shout out to Galen, and a bunch of other people. But he and I
Galen,
played it
Ben,
a lot.
Matt.
Oh yeah. But so I played with all those guys like out at Ben's house and whatnot. But
Chris, Brian,
Galen and I would play this a lot, like at his place, just like so. I played a lot of this.
Wayne, Johnny.
Yeah, all these old cool dudes who we used to play a lot of this stuff with. I've also played it a lot in LARP, in the Camarilla LARPs back in the 90s and early aughts and whatnot. I liked it, and I still like it. And they put out a 20th anniversary edition that basically took
not this year.
No. This is old. This is like 4 years old.
Oh, no, the 20th anniversary is still retro.
Yeah, the 20th anniversary edition, but it's also the most current edition.
Right.
But it's been out long enough that all of the splat and side books are out. So all the extras and all of the supplements. They didn't do tribe books, but they really did. They did these supplementary books that have a lot of extra material for the tribes. But ultimately, so if you're not familiar with Werewolf the Apocalypse, it's set in the world of darkness, which is kind of an analog to the real world, but like every dark evil element cranked up to 11.
Yeah.
And all supernatural things basically exist. Vampires, werewolves, fairies, mages, etc. This is a game focused on werewolves. They're the good guys, ostensibly. They're fighting for nature against bad guys, the worm, which is the great devourer of
those
all
freaking
things.
leeches.
Yeah, evil vampires. And so basically all the werewolves are kind of heroic, and they have spirit magic, and they exist in tribal groups that are ultimately in their original printings in the first edition, second edition, which they just called revised. Some of them turned out to be just kind of a cultural stereotype with a tribal label tossed on it.
Yeah.
They didn't have a lot of meat to it. And a lot of it would be nowadays called appropriation or almost a farcical look, an exaggerated look at some of these cultures. One thing I really like about this 20th anniversary is, of course, they didn't rewrite all of that stuff out, but what they did was they tried to convert these tribal groups over into more philosophical ideals that have roots in cultural groups based on historical geography. So the tribe stands for something. They're not just, we're the tribe who's this ethnicity and that's our tribe.
Interesting.
They're more ideological. They try to stand for something, and you should be able to elevator pitch every tribe with an ideology, not simply we're the Irish ones, and so
then what is then the Irish ones are the Fianna. What is the elevator pitch for Fianna if it's not just get away from me, Lucky Charms?
Yeah, so the Fianna they're basically like there's a song that beats within the heart of every being, and there's a beauty that's created from your spirit and your soul, and these are the werewolves of passion and art and song, and so they create beautiful craftsmanship things, and they create wonderful sagas, and they're the heroic skaldic like warrior poet style concept. And so that's what the Fianna represent, and historically they come from Irish and Gaelic geography, but the tribal identity in the modern world has expanded, and you could play someone from any ethnicity in any tribe.
That's really interesting.
And that's important to me as a gamer, because I hate it when you're just locked down. I can't play this because I don't want to feel weird about that, or whatever. And so that leads me to, they made a Vampire 5th edition, a new one with a streamlined system that takes a lot of the clunky mechanics that I never really liked, like blood being a gas tank for your superpowers, and once you're out, you're out. And they made it more of a thematic, like, it's a hunger scale. The more hungry you are, the more bestial you get, and you're going to frenzy and stuff.
Interesting.
It's a lot different. That same team, well, it's not the same exact team, but they're making a Werewolf 5th edition. It's not going to be out this year. It might not even be out till the end of next year. I'm going to be patient. I'm a Werewolf fan. I like what they did with Vampire 5th edition mechanically. I think it was really good. They kept kind of the spirit of a lot of those clans. I think they're going to do the same thing with Werewolf. They're going to keep the spirit of the tribes that people like. They're going to try to trim some of the stuff that was problematic from a social standpoint, and they're hopefully going to make it really good. They have a really cool team working on it that's pretty diverse ethnically and gender wise. It's a good team that I think will be responsible in making a great RPG.
It's interesting how that stuff changes, because I certainly, like when I was like 12 or 13, when the first edition of Werewolf came out, all that stuff seemed actually probably inclusive to me, like not appropriative and problematic like it would as an adult.
Yeah, like look, these are the Indian ones.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, look how there's all of the different colors of the rainbow included in this.
Yeah, when that's a really reductive way of
totally.
at it.
Yeah, but it was it didn't seem that way at the time, and
no, I didn't feel badly at all about the game until I guess the social consciousness kind of moved forward, and I guess I grew a little bit.
Yeah,
I try.
It happens. Yeah, it's a journey for all of us.
Yeah, so that's what I've been up to. I've been deep diving Werewolf: The Apocalypse, and I will give it a glowing recommendation of one of my favorite role-playing games of all time. It does not beat D&D, which is the GOAT, but it's up there neck and neck with Vampire the Masquerade as far as things that I love.
You consider them distinct? Like, you don't think World of Darkness is a thing?
So you can play it that way, Friends of Darkness, if you want to have all the different things.
Oh, we definitely did.
Oh, we did. But when I run a game, if I run a vampire game, it's vampire-centric. Everything else is an antagonist. If I run a werewolf game, it's werewolf-centric. Everything else is a setting piece, a story plot, or plot arc, a device, an antagonist. It's all about the werewolves. So I like to do it from the perspective of what the characters are. So I do consider them distinct, and I will use more generic versions of the antagonists. I don't need them to be super Taylor proper.
Yeah.
They'll just be vampires that do vampire-like things.
Gotcha. And I think I sent you the trailer for the video game that's coming out soon, or might already be out by the time you're listening to this.
Yeah, I haven't kept my finger on the pulse ultimately, but I'm going to give that a shot. I wonder if it's only going to be PC or if they're going to put it out on consoles.
I think that was for console.
Oh, okay.
It looks cool, but I don't think there's any gameplay stuff there. It's just like that intro animatic.
You can call me jaded, but I've been burned by Vampire the Masquerade IP before. When
there was a TV show.
Well, there was a TV show which is a solid 2.75. But There was also an MMO game in development by CCP, the company that makes Eve, and it vapor. It never went anywhere, and I was so excited. I was all for it. I was on board. I was all about it, and then it went away, and I have been jaded as hell about that ever since. So I don't get my hopes up until something is actually released. I don't need it on day one. I just want it to happen at some point.
That's funny. Okay. Yeah, I'm on board with this, and I've got a lot of fond memories of playing Werewolf the Apocalypse for sure. So I'm with you. And
all right, great.
I think that game looks good too.
Oh yeah, I'll give it. I'm gonna Google it after this. All right, so that's what I've been doing. So what are you into right now?
So as I alluded to earlier, I'm not doing a whole heck of a lot of like fun stuff, but I have been catching up on some TV shows. And one that particularly has just captured my heart is Lovecraft Country.
Okay.
And by the time the divers are listening to this, the whole, I think, 10 episode season 1 will be out. So you can, if you haven't been keeping up with it, you can just binge the whole thing.
What platform is that on?
HBO Max.
Okay.
I am having to wait week to week like a sucker, but you, with the, since you're in the future, you'll be able to just listen to the whole thing or watch the whole thing. And I highly recommend it. It's based on a novel by Matt Ruff. And it was developed for TV and written by Misha Green. It's like a co-production of Monkey Paw, which is Jordan Peele's company, and Bad Robot, which is J.J. Abrams. And it's not, the name is slightly misleading in that it's not completely bogged down in the mythology of H.P. Lovecraft. It's really just more of a setting. A lot of the bad or weird happenings are centered in that sort of area of New England that Lovecraft set his stories.
Because I'll be honest with you, when I saw the name Lovecraft Country, I immediately said, I'm not watching that, and neither should anyone else, because H.P. Lovecraft is a notorious and heinous racist. Like, not a subtle one. He did writings that were overtly and disgustingly racist.
Yeah, there's a certain poem on the creation of a word that we won't repeat. That gets referenced in the show. In the very first episode, because there's the lead character, Atticus Freeman, who's played by Jonathan Majors. He's picking up this H.P. Lovecraft book in his uncle's bookstore, and his uncle just kind of starts to geek out about Lovecraft, and he checks him, and he's like, "Yeah, my dad made me memorize this poem after he caught me reading this." And so it goes kind of head on at that and subverts a lot of those tropes. It's like a completely person of color centered show.
So
both in
why
front
are
of
they using his name in the title? It would be like if I wrote a show or something called Burzum Stories.
sort of. So here's what. Not to send you to a different, better podcast, but I like...
there are none.
There are none. I like Fat Man Beyond with Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, and Mark Bernardin is a African-American man, and he, like me, loves like classic pulp fiction, like Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Rice Burroughs, yada, yada, yada. All those guys are racist. And so he says, and this is kind of like one of the central premises of the show, is that reconciliation between someone, a person of color, that loves this subject matter, but the creators of the subject matter don't love you back.
That's a deep topic.
Yeah, and it's really like a reappropriation and a taking over of those tropes. Are you
being like Jay from Jay and Silent Bob? Like, we're taking it back?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. How? When does he do that?
Oh, you remember when he puts uses tape and puts Porch Monkey on the back of his shirt and he says, "We're taking it back."
No, not like that. No, it's no. So there's in the very first episode, the lead character Atticus, he's riding like a cross country bus, like a Greyhound type bus, from Florida to Chicago, and he's reading The Princess of Mars, the first book in the Martian Chronicles, or whatever they're called, the John Carter books.
Okay.
And he's explaining it to another black passenger on the bus about what the book is about, and he kind of breezes past that John Carter is a Confederate soldier. And she's like, hold up. Confederate soldier? They fought for slavery. And he's talking about how black people are never the center of these stories. But these are the stories that we have, and I love these stories.
Sure.
And then they proceed to tell those sort of stories, to work in those tropes of, like the occult horror of Lovecraft.
The whole mythos.
Yeah, and the space opera of the John Carter books, and the the adventure, the sort of stuff that became like the Indiana Jones, that kind of came out of like Doc Savage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Each episode is sort of in that pulp, one of those pulp genres, but 90% black cast, black written, black music. It's like reappropriation of those tropes and stories.
Sure. I mean, I'm not going to try to tell them what they should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
It just seems a little odd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you just have to watch it and make up your own mind. But I'm super deep into it.
It's been on the list. You're not the first one to recommend it. My buddy Marty recommended it to me, and I normally like the stuff that he recommends.
Yeah. So when I'm done with the show, I'm going to get into the book for sure.
Oh, nice. What's the book called?
Lovecraft Country.
Okay. Straight up. All right. So I guess that's why they used the name. I mean,
and let me just get through a few of these people on the cast. Journey Smollett from Birds of Prey is Letitia Lewis, and Michael Kenneth Williams from The Wire, Omar for The Wire.
Oh, I love Omar.
Is Atticus's father, Montrose. And
Omar is the best character on that show.
Oh yeah, I love Omar. Omar's coming. Yeah. And so like the cast is superb, like the pedigree of the show, both the producers, the writer, it's all excellent. It's
okay.
Big recommend.
Maybe I'll give it a shot. So you would say it's better than True Blood recommendation.
Having
Orange is the New Black.
It's only one season. Okay. So I can't put it. Orange is the New Black definitely is diminishing returns.
Oh, you can watch 2 seasons of that show and stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know in the long run how this will play out, but this is
season 1 pretty good.
Season 1 is very good. Love it.
All right. Well, that's cool. So I wanted to give everybody a preview maybe of what are some topics we're about to talk about.
Oh, yeah. So like as we said, we're wrapping up season 1 and we're looking forward to season 2 in 2021.
And we use these terms really loosely. These are spiritual seasons. It's nothing formal. We kind of do what we need to do. But I've been keeping a little list of things that are in the hopper. So you can look forward to, we mentioned it before, we're going to have a Bruce Lee episode coming up.
At least one.
We're definitely doing a deep dive on Lost Boys.
Oh, yep, that's been added to the list.
That's on there. We are doing a Hobbit episode.
Oh, yeah, and that is an exciting one.
And we haven't actually talked about the details if we're doing Rankin Bass and we're doing the newer ones.
I thought we were going to head the Rankin Bass Hobbit and the Tolkien edit
Oh yeah, the fan edit of the Tolkien of the movies versus the Rankin Bass. That way we're getting kind of a fun, fresh take that cuts the fat.
Yeah.
And since I'm a total nerd boy, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna reread The Hobbit or re-listen to the audiobook.
Good call.
Before this episode, because I love it. We have on the docket, we're going to do an album deep dive of My War by Black Flag.
Hugely influential album.
We've been tossing that one around since day one.
Yeah, and I think we have a much better idea how to do it since doing the Metallica episode.
And honestly, if we can do a lot of things with this, especially since Henry Rollins is super accessible. If we tell him we're doing a podcast on this album and we have some questions, I bet you he responds to that email.
Oh, he might. Yeah.
He's pretty cool.
He's pretty reachable. You've emailed him before, so.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. We're going to do one on Shin Godzilla.
That's a big one for me. And, it's... You can't see me because this is an audio medium, but I have a lot of monster tattoos, and Godzilla's got a pretty prominent space.
Yeah, right on your arm in the front.
Yeah. I think Dave's never seen that movie, and of any Godzilla movie, like I think it's got the most intellectually to chew on.
All right, cool. We're going to do an episode on Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I still don't know how we're going to do that.
Yeah, this is huge because I want to include the cartoon.
Oh, dude.
I want to include the movies. I want to include...
So stay tuned for that 5-hour episode.
We might make it a D&D series.
It just takes over.
No, just periodically we drop a D&D episode.
Oh, interesting.
Kind of like a hot take, but
Yeah.
it's like a super cold take.
Super cold take.
Stuff from the 70s. Where we've got Evangelion queued up.
Yeah, and that pairs nicely with Shin Godzilla.
And then the most recent addition to the list, at my insistence, is there's a new documentary out on the Lane Staley era of Alice in Chains called Dirtumentary. And we're going to do an Alice in Chains deep dive.
Is that sanctioned by the band documentary?
I don't think it is.
It's not. It's a hard-hitting expose.
It is I wouldn't call it hard-hitting expose. It's definitely fan-based, but it is not filtered through Jerry's lens of the story he wants to tell.
It's interesting. So, just a slight Alice in Chains tangent, because it's not my favorite band. But I thought this was an interesting little tidbit because I have a friend who used to play in a local Portland metal band called The Kill in the late 80s, early 90s. And he has nice things to say about the Alice in Chains guys. I think like that basically a lot of the Seattle bands were not very friendly to the Portland bands, but Alice in Chains was an exception.
Yeah, they're pretty well known for being chill and cool. Jerry Cantrell has got a really good reputation for that sort of thing. There's actually Gibson Guitars. They do a Legends series, where they interview guitar legends. And it's not just like Gibson artists. It's just people, because Jerry plays Les Pauls sometimes, but he actually has been with G&L guitars for his entire career. So Gibson does a Legends episode on Jerry Cantrell where he's just being interviewed, and it's really cool. But that's really off the point. So that's what we've got queued up right now. We have a lot more ideas that are just like rolling around in the head. Like I've wanted to do a Matrix thing for a while.
Yeah.
I've wanted to do a Dracula head-to-head where we take an old and a newer one.
Yeah, we've got a lot of head-to-heads in the future.
Yeah, I definitely want to add Mad Max on here at some point because I love those movies.
I thought that was on our list.
That's on our idea list, not on our actual agenda.
Okay.
Hasn't made the cut. So we've got a lot in store for you. If you have particular episode topics you think we should do, tweet at us. We will read them. It's not like we're bogged down with too many tweets to read. So just add us, and we will certainly respond, and we'll add it to the idea list and talk about it.
Yeah, sure. We have had some interesting suggestions. I know an episode on the Doors was suggested by friend of the show, Lisa.
That's a good episode.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff out there.
I would do the doors in a second. I really like them. All right, so that's all I've got for that. How about you? You got anything else you need to bring up?
No, I think it's time for that call to action.
All right, so I'm going to ask you to subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher and rate us generously. A 5-star review costs you nothing but means everything to us.
You can find us on all social media platforms across the metaverse as Deep Dive the Meta. We're on Twitter, which Dave prefers. We're on Instagram, which I like. And you know what? I'm going to stop running down Pinterest because I think that's one of our best pages.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, we're on Pinterest, which everybody should like.
You should check it out. Well, I guess this is really goodbye.
Don't say goodbye. Say good journey.